Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, Karen stole my hair and skin oils and threw them out. Big mistake. I, 32 female, and my husband Alex, 34 male, have allowed my sister-in-law, Julie, who's 34, to stay in our house due to her soon-to-be ex kicking her out and filing for divorce. Julie still has her job, but doesn't want to go through the ordeal of getting a new apartment while dealing with her soon-to-be ex, and we didn't want her to have to stay in a hotel during that. I'm Indian, and Alex and the rest of his family are white. I feel like that might be relevant to what happened here. I use oils for most of my hair and skincare. I also use chemically manufactured products, but I found that it's better for my hair and skin. That's also how my mother cared for me when I was younger. Julie disapproves of this and thinks that I'm just going around town an oily and greasy mess, despite me repeatedly explaining why I do this to her. She's tried to convince me to switch to all chemical products that she uses, but I politely decline each time. When I woke up today after sleeping in with Alex, I walked into our shared bathroom and I saw the case of my oils was not there. I looked further around the bathroom to see where it could be, and I asked my husband if he had moved them. He said no, and that's when I went into the living room and asked Julie about my case. Julie gave me a smirk and told me that she had woken up early this morning and took my case out of the bathroom to drive to the other side of the community we live in and dump it in the garbage bin there. I was tired and thought that she was joking until Julie bragged about it, saying that she did me a favor and that I wouldn't have to use such uncivilized ways of taking care of myself. Once her words sunk in, I was upset and I called Alex into the room to explain to him what she did. Alex seemed disappointed but not surprised about what Julie did and told her that what she did was disrespectful. Julie tried to defend herself, saying that she only did what she thought was best and it shouldn't be such a big deal. I cut her off, saying that I wanted her to give me $76, which was the cost of the oils, so I could replace them. Julie got nervous and said she was in a tight spot financially, so she couldn't pay me back right away. I said that was fine, but I expected her to pay me at some point. After a small back and forth, Julie eventually packed a bag and said she'd be staying at a hotel to give me time to cool down and realize how irrational I was being. A few hours later, my mother-in-law and father-in-law scolded me for making Julie uncomfortable in my home and that I shouldn't force her to pay for something so small. My husband asked his mom how she'd feel if Julie tossed out hundreds of dollars of skincare she owned because Julie thought it wasn't good for her. My mother-in-law just replied with, "That's different," before telling us that I should apologize and then hanging up. Edit. My mother-in-law and father-in-law are paying for Julie's hotel and apparently are going to do so until she comes back to our house. Not the jerk. She stole your items. It doesn't matter if she used them, gave them away, or trashed them. She stole your items and you don't have them anymore. This is after you graciously let her live in your house. That's different? BS. Something so small? Then the father-in-law and mother-in-law can give you the $76. Tight spot financially? Then maybe not incur costs by stealing other people's stuff. She thought that was best? How about not doing that in someone else's house? Does she throw out things she doesn't approve of in everybody's house or just yours? I'm curious why her ex threw her out, but I have my suspicions. Not the jerk, and Julie is an ungrateful brat. She has money to stay at a hotel but not to pay you back for things that she stole from you? My boyfriend, who's 29, told me, 27 female, that there was a chance he'd leave me if I was infertile. I was really sick from ages 22 to 24 with my lungs, and I almost didn't make it. The doctors still to this day can't tell me what caused it, and I recovered, but I still have minor breathing issues from time to time. My boyfriend and I have been together for 1.5 years and recently have been talking more about having kids in the future. We unfortunately never spoke about things like infertility, which sadly runs in my family. I was quite taken aback when he said there was a chance he'd leave our relationship if I couldn't safely carry a child because of my lungs, currently being reinvestigated, or if I was infertile. When I asked him if he was the infertile one, he said he expected me to do the same, but it's something I'd personally never consider leaving him over. We revisited the conversation the next day, and he went from saying there was a chance to him stating he's 95% sure he wouldn't leave me. I, of course, would never stand in the way of him being a father, but I can't seem to shake off the fact that there's this condition attached to our relationship now. It's made me feel like my value is attached to my fertility, and I'm starting to view him in a different light. Am I just being overly sensitive? Edit. I just wanted to note that I'm not actually confirmed to be infertile. I'm just at a slight risk because I've had a few women in my family that had fertility issues, and there's also the concern that I wouldn't be able to safely carry a baby due to my lungs. We would obviously have to run tests to have anything confirmed. Update. We took a week break and came back to discuss what happened. He explained that he didn't mean what he said, and he was in shock because our relationship was falling apart. But I still feel doubtful when even after 24 hours, he only changed it to being 95% sure he wouldn't leave. And during our recent discussion, he admitted he didn't understand exactly how hurtful it would be for me to hear something like that. After reading everyone's comments, speaking to my friends, family, and therapist, we've ended our relationship. Unfortunately, I've realized that after my boyfriend told me there'd be a possibility he'd leave me if I were infertile, that I'm sadly no longer going to feel secure in this relationship, knowing that he's told me he's unable to support and stick by me should I face health issues in the future. And it's making me doubt if he can show up for me at all. Which admittedly, he's failed to be there for me already this year during my multiple family passings and important health appointments. I'm devastated and the most heartbroken I've ever been, as I really thought we had a loving and caring relationship and that we would be able to build an amazing life together. But I've realized I'm choosing someone who's never going to choose me and that I deserve better. Honestly, leaving was the right choice because I believe that the first thing he said was the actual truth. He just started trying to walk it back because he saw that it was something that was going to ruin the relationship. I'm glad that she got advice and followed through. She mentioned possible infertility. He said he would dump her for infertility. She got nervous about the relationship and he backpedaled? I don't think he was using his thinking brain, but what's the plan? Assume everything goes great, no infertility, no need to ever have resided this concern. Then he was stupid to have opened his mouth in the first place. Wait to dump her until infertility arises? Save time all around and just break up. She made the right choice for that one. I'm infertile. There's a 0 chance I can conceive and carry a baby. If my significant other said that was a deal breaker, then it just is. Relationship has run its course. Even if later they didn't mean it or weren't sure, I would know that they would resent me for a lack of a baby because of something out of my control. I had to have a total hysterectomy because of cancer. There was no other way that wouldn't have been just rolling dice and praying things didn't go badly. All for a theoretical kid that may never exist. Breaking up is painful, but knowing your beloved is angry with something about you that you can't change is worse than any breakup. Honestly, to some people it is a deal breaker. It's not an evil thing. I also wouldn't want to be with a person who's child-free and vice versa, or with a person that hates pets. That's life. I don't ever want kids. But if fatherhood is important to the guy, isn't that his right? I mean, at least he communicated it directly when the issue came up. It's not his right to make her feel broken. It is his right. He's old enough that he should know how controversial his choice would be for potential partners, and he should have been more upfront before entering into a serious relationship with her. Except, it's not controversial at all. It's the norm that most people want kids, and if one of the partners couldn't or wouldn't have them, then the relationship is over. No, it isn't. This isn't the 1600s. Would I be the jerk for pulling out of my family's Secret Santa after seeing the wish list I got? Our family's Secret Santa, as of right now, has 20 participants. Not sure if this is a normal amount or if it's a lot. I've only been in Secret Santas with 5 to 7 people at work. We have re-rolled 5 times because we're either A, changed the rules after getting our receipt, or B, added people. We started with 10, decided to add spouses, then the kids, and now random family friends. Our current rules are ridiculous in my opinion. We were told to put affordable gifts that a kid can buy, but everyone is putting their expensive life wishes on the list. Then we have to get at least 5 gifts from the wish list with no budget, and you have to declare how many gifts you are giving in the group chat to make sure that you receive the same amount, which makes no sense. You also need to add where the gifts can be found. A few people have also started saying that they're going to buy from lists other than the recipients. I'm already totally confused. Like, why are they making this so complicated? On top of that, everyone keeps editing their lists, adding and removing things that they think of. I've explained how inconvenient this is becoming, and even tried the angle of the financial burden being placed on the parents of multiple kids. There's 6 kids in total in the group. Most of the group agrees, but are explaining that they are gritting their teeth for family's sake. Well, your family sounds like a headache. The list I got today after a month of back and forth. I've been asking since this seems to be a serious project at this point. is riddled with luxury name brands like Dior and Louis Vuitton that I know no one in the group can afford. Maybe 2 people can buy one of these items, and that's a strong maybe. Nothing on the list can be found for less than $200, and I checked. Did I mention that we are not allowed to deviate from the list unless explicitly stated that we can? Yeah. This doesn't feel like the essence of gift giving or even Secret Santa. There's so many rules, no element of surprise. At this point, we're just giving each other items to unwrap. I'm one of 3 who followed the rules, and no one edited their list when this was brought up. My entire list is $100 in total. Edit. Quite a few of you are interested in specific items requested from my recipient. Here's an example. The list I got includes luxury handbags, a PS5, Dyson Airwrap, a cashmere robe, a plane ticket to Bali, to name a few. The cheapest is a green Amazon Kindle, which is $203 with tax. Not the jerk, and I'd drop out. I'd even do it in a family chat if there is one. I'd let them know you would be willing to rejoin with one gift for the person you drew and a budget of a certain amount. Otherwise, Merry Christmas. Not the jerk. This sounds stressful and expensive. Usually the point of Secret Santa is to help relieve some of the expenses of buying a lot of individual gifts. I think this is going to blow up in a negative way the way that they're going about it. It's a complete expensive mess. Let us know how it goes. Not the jerk. This is a disaster. $200 minimum is ridiculous. Kids in the group or not. What's wrong with them? I would back down even if it puts a strain on my relations with these people. If everyone buys 5 gifts, that's $1,000 minimum. It's scandalous. Well, what do you think? Should OP stay in the Secret Santa or not? Please let us know. This is giving me flashbacks to Secret Santa when I was in 6th grade. The gift that I took to school was the coolest Vortex football you'd ever seen. Had big wings on it and made a loud whistle when you threw it. You know what my Secret Santa got me? A microwave omelet maker. Am I the jerk for not allowing my boyfriend to have overnight house guests? I'm neurodivergent and bipolar. I'm prone to psychosis, and I was diagnosed many years ago, long before I met my husband. He's been aware the entire time that I've known him, and he knows there are some quirks about me because of my neurodivergence. I'm high functioning, for lack of a better term, and so my issues may be invisible to many people, but my partner, his family, and my friends and family all know my situation. Specifically, I don't have overnight house guests, and I don't allow guests past midnight unless it's pre-cleared with me. This is because the sounds and noises and interruptions of other people are a lot for me to handle, and I can only handle and mask so much before I'm just completely spent and I eventually lose my temper and filter and either become enraged or start sobbing or even find myself unable to sleep for days on end and going psychotic because I'm so overstimulated and I haven't slept. My husband's mother has never seen me this way, and I hope she never does. Losing my temper and filter is not something I want to do around friends or family. I also need 2 to 4 hours to calm my brain down after a lot of socialization before I can go to sleep, hence my midnight cutoff. I don't feel this drained or stressed around my partner, or he wouldn't be my husband. But everyone but him and my best friend of a decade, yes. My husband moved from his city, which his mother lives in, his father has passed long ago, to my city to be with me when we got married. Before he did that, I talked to him about how I can't have overnight house guests. In 2 years of dating, neither of us has had an overnight house guest except each other. He said he understood and it was no problem. But now his mother wants to come to visit for a week at Christmas, and she wants to stay with us in the guest room, my partner's office that has a bed in it also. He sleeps in there when I'm having trouble sleeping. This will require my partner to work in the kitchen right beside my office corner, not really a room, causing a ton of noise and disruption, and we'll have another person around all the time draining my energy. Currently, our offices are separated. My partner said he agreed with the overnight house guest thing when he assumed I meant our friends. He says he never understood it also meant his mother. I've offered to pay for half a hotel when his mother comes to stay, but he says that isn't the point, and she doesn't want to come if she can't stay with us. We live in the city, and the hotel is literally 1 block from us. This is not an exaggeration. I've stayed at it before for a week when I was waiting for our apartment to become ready, and it's very classy. Am I the jerk for insisting his mother stays at a hotel when she visits so I can stay sane? Edit. Yes, I have been hospitalized for 2 weeks before for being psychotic. So just grin and bear it means I probably go back to the hospital for not sleeping and going crazy. I don't think this is a fair outcome for me. Not the jerk. But is he your boyfriend or your husband? The title says boyfriend, but you call him your husband in the post. In any case, the solution is simple. If she insists on staying at your house, you go stay at the hotel. Look, it's not like you're being mean, and it's also not like he doesn't know about your mental health issues. I think he is intentionally obstructionist because he doesn't want conflict with his mom, or he thinks you will cave in. Don't do it. You have a solution. But honestly, has he even explained your mental health issues to his mom? It sounds like she has no clue. OP. Husband of about 6 months. I keep calling him my partner or boyfriend still. I'm totally doing the hotel thing. I'm going to talk to him tonight. People have given many helpful suggestions. His mother knows I'm bipolar, but does not know about the psychosis. Almost nobody does. The amount of people that know about the psychosis is 3 total, including my husband, best friend, and psychiatrist. I'm very private about it because it was the lowest point of my life to be hospitalized for 2 weeks. Update. I talked to John and my mother-in-law, and I got a lot of messages asking for an update. I spoke to my husband John last night about the situation regarding his mom staying at the hotel, and I explained that I would pay for and go to a hotel myself, or pay for half of his mother's hotel when she came. John was absolutely aghast. First, he was freaked out about me not running the house for the week and having to take over my roles, as I had guessed. John has autism and is very attached to his routines. Here's my role in the house from one of my comments. I do his laundry, taxes, all of the vet runs, all of the groomer runs, all of the grocery runs. I plan all of our doctors, dentist, and optometrist appointments. I send out the Christmas cards. I'm the sole driver in the house, and I take him to all of his appointments. I also get all of the car maintenance and washing done myself. I go to the pharmacy and dry cleaner for him. I replace anything that's broken or damaged, his or mine. I plan all of our date nights, all of our anniversaries, our vacations and trips. I picked all the furnishings for our apartment because doing so stressed him out. I do the budgeting, finances, and pay all of the bills, with both our money. It's maybe an hour a night for him to cook and clean, maybe 4 times a week. We get our own breakfasts and lunches, and we eat out 3 times a week. But I spend much more than an hour a day running the rest of the household. So John was already having to make a stretch to his routine to have his mother visit, but to have his mother visit and me gone? He really didn't like that. Plus, he told me he hated the idea of not sleeping in the same bed with me for a week, and that this is a non-starter. So he called his mother, which we were both nervous about because he had talked it up so much. They're from a culture where respecting your parents is very important, and John was extremely afraid of offending his mother. We called her and explained the situation, saying that it's really hard for me to fall asleep unless I'm around him or my best friend, and that's why I had the no house guests rule. We told her there was a place less than a block away that was a lovely 4-star hotel and we would be happy to pay for it. Well, then his mother started yelling and talking loudly. Not at me though. Best I can remember, here's what she said. "John, you had a fight with her about me staying there when you're happy to pay for me to stay in a 4-star hotel? John, I know you had a fight because you never both call me unless it's a holiday. You're telling me you didn't immediately give me the chance to stay in a 4-star hotel? John, when was the last time I stayed in a 4-star hotel? Let me tell you, the answer is never." So his mom is extremely excited about staying in the 4-star hotel and now keeps making jokes about how she might not even see us on the vacation because she'll be at the spa, fancy restaurant, etc. at the hotel. John is happy as pie about all of this because I'm happy and his mom is really happy. He doesn't care at all that she isn't staying with us, only that she wasn't offended by the hotel idea. Thanks to everyone that told me to respect my boundaries. All the best. Wait, a Reddit story with a happy ending where everyone gets along? Don't worry, Karen, it's probably just a glitch in the Matrix. Here's one to bring us back to reality. Am I the jerk for telling my cousin I didn't get a graduation present? I, 23 female, recently graduated from university with honors. I'm not from the US. I attended uni for free and had a scholarship which took care of my housing and food situation. The country I'm from has really good deals for student dorms, and I was able to stay at a dorm for the entirety of my studies. I don't own a car either as I work from home. This will be important later. I landed a stable job right after uni, and I'm attending what you in the US call grad school. My parents weren't really supportive during my studies. They expressed zero interest in attending my graduation or conferences when I presented work. Yesterday, I visited my uncle, male 43. He took his kids to Paris for a holiday, and they had a blast. So I went over to see photos, videos, hear how it was, etc. My cousin, who's 8, she asked if I'd ever been to Paris. I told her no, but it is on my list. She asked me why I never went to Paris, and I told her I never had the opportunity. Now, my uni friend, male 24, was in Paris at the same time as my uncle and cousins, and they met by chance in a restaurant. My uncle knows my friend. My uncle is an interior designer, and he designed my friend's mom's house after I introduced them, and my uncle mentioned that they saw him in Paris. I remembered he was gifted a trip to Paris and London as a graduation gift from his parents, and my uncle mentioned that my friend told him so. I remembered my friend telling me about that holiday, and I verified to my uncle that was probably his graduation present, and then my cousin asked what I got as a graduation present. As you all probably have guessed by now, I got nothing. I'm absolutely not entitled to anything, but for context, my younger sister, who's 19, got into uni this year, and my parents gave her roughly $900 worth of gifts, including shoes and jewelry. I told my cousin I got myself a pair of shoes I really wanted for graduation, and for my first real paycheck, and my boyfriend gave me a notebook. My cousin looked really sad and told me that's really not enough for something as big as a graduation. My uncle looked really upset too, and I just switched over to another topic. This morning, I got an angry call from my mother. She called me an ungrateful brat for demanding a gift for doing what was required of me to do, and asked if I won a participation trophy. She also mentioned my uncle suggested they buy me a car, something I never wished for or expressed wanting, and said if I want a car, I should work for it, a sentiment I agree with. I just hung up because I didn't have it in me to deal with her. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It seems your mother is wanting to yell at you for demands that your uncle is making. Her issue should be, and should remain, with him. If she's embarrassed by your uncle for not giving you a gift, you still don't owe her an apology, as this is also something between her and your uncle. Not the jerk. You gave an honest answer to the kid's question. If your parents are embarrassed by the truth, that's their problem. Karen calls me undateable, so I made her cry. This is a weird title, but here's what actually happened. My ex and I broke up 5 years ago after a year-long relationship. He broke up with me, and I took it very hard back then. I can't say I did anything crazy, aside from a few weeks after the breakup, getting really drunk on a night out and sending him some embarrassing texts. It was the worst heartbreak I've ever had, and it didn't help that he kept messaging me to be friends, even though I tried to set boundaries and say that I need space to heal. Anyways, that's all in the past. I can confidently say that I have indeed healed from that, and I'm over him. He recently got married to a girl he started dating like 2 months after we broke up. Honestly, I'm happy for him. Good for them. Me, on the other hand, I've dated since then, but haven't been able to find anyone worth marrying. I haven't even had another serious relationship since then. He's still in the periphery of my social circle because we still have a lot of mutual friends from uni, and sometimes I see both of them in social settings. While he and I have buried the hatchet and usually just chat when we happen to be in the same room for a bit, although we never text or meet up outside of these contexts, his wife and I have always treated each other with polite disinterest. I know she really doesn't like me. An important note about her is that she's been unemployed for a long time. I don't know if it's because she wants to be a stay-at-home wife, completely valid if that's her thing, or because she's been unable to find work, but she hasn't worked in many years despite having a master's degree. I've been really able to advance my career in the past 5 years, and I'm quite far ahead in my field for someone my age, and I'm very proud of myself because I worked extremely hard. Anyways, here's the issue. The other day, a bunch of people went out for drinks, including myself. They were both there. We were all sitting at the same table in a bar. Someone I haven't seen in a while asked me if I'm dating anyone. I replied, no, not right now. My ex's wife quickly made a snark comment, "Oh, it's okay. Some people just stay single," in front of everyone, like 10 of our friends. Without missing a beat, I blurted out, "Yeah, just like some people are meant to stay unemployed." She got really upset, cried, and left. Her husband messaged me that I should apologize to her for embarrassing her. I said I will if she apologizes first. He said she refuses because what I said was worse, apparently. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. People need to learn not to start crap unless they can handle someone else finishing it for them. I have zero sympathy for jerks that are inexplicably rude and then have the audacity to act offended when the object of their rudeness fails to passively accept it. Not the jerk. What she did and said was uncalled for. What you replied with was gold. She seems jealous of your achievements and the fact that her husband still keeps in contact with you. It seems like a lot of insecurity on her end. Even though you are on good terms with your ex now, do you think it's possible to cut ties with him? It just seems like his wife gets a kick out of trying to berate you. He will always have to take her side since she is his life partner now. I just feel like it's going to cause a weird drift in your social circle if she keeps getting included, and she will, because she is his wife. Not the jerk. Don't insult or comment on something unless you're prepared for something to be said back to you. She clearly wanted to dish it out but could not take it, and that's how most of the world works. What's the worst that's going to happen? They aren't going to talk to you when you're in the same social circle? My guess is that you could care less if they do or don't. You're the jerk. I don't know about her tone, but just saying some people stay single isn't an insult unless you're the type that thinks single people are worth less than people in relationships. You overreacted to a touchy subject because you're truly not over the breakup. You may be over your ex, but you transferred your resentment to his new partner. She was giving the right message, but she was the wrong messenger. I see why things didn't work out with your ex and why he would rather be with someone who's unemployed because you sound petty and entitled. You can convince yourself that you're better than her because you have a career, but at the end of the day, she's the one he's coming home to. Fix your attitude and maybe you'll find someone worth marrying, like you say. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her ex's wife? Please let us know. Another good comeback would have been, some of us are meant to settle for leftovers. Karen left her husband, now she really regrets it. I told her that she did this to herself. My daughter Gina, who's 38, left her husband, Dan, who's 40, for a younger and more exciting man from her work. They broke up when she got hit with a condo levy she asked him to help pay for since he was living with her. He declined since he wasn't on the deed. He said he didn't mind paying rent, but that maintenance was on the owner. They fought, and that was that. She ended up having to sell the condo. It was too expensive for her alone, but it was something she fought for in the divorce. That was 6 years ago, and she finally burned through the money from the sale. We told her to buy something smaller in a different neighborhood, but she insisted that she needed to live there so the kids wouldn't be disrupted. In the meantime, our son-in-law just remarried a lovely girl, Madison, who's about 28. Our grandkids love her, and she's always very pleasant when we speak. She's pregnant, and the kids are excited for a new sibling. My daughter is back living with us. All she does is work and complain. She has to work too much. She can't meet good men. This new woman stole her life. It never stops. My wife is always commiserating with her about how she is so hard done by. I just keep my mouth shut. Madison came by yesterday to pick up the kids. After she left, my daughter went off again. She was driving a new car they got since her old one would be impractical for a family of 5 to drive around in. The kids ran out to see it and check out all of the bells and whistles. Gina didn't even say hello. After Madison and the kids left, she started whining again. Now about how she can't afford a new car. I couldn't help it. I told her that she made her choices to give up her life she had for something different, and that choices have consequences. She literally ran crying to her room, and I felt like crap. Her mom scolded me for being so harsh. I apologized for saying what I said, and I honestly feel bad about it, but I think she needs to stop complaining about her life since she's the one that chose it. Not the jerk. Your daughter is 38 and is old enough to hear the truth. You don't need to use kids' gloves anymore with her. Well, what do you think? Was Dad too harsh with his daughter or not? Please let us know. Gee, maybe if you didn't run out on your family, you wouldn't be in this position. Laid off and replaced by 2 lazy, privileged waffles. I used to be in charge of the printer room in a rather large company. We shipped a ton of product every day, and everything shipped had to have the accompanying printed labels and documents. Nothing can even be loaded onto the trucks without this paperwork. Now, this was in the olden days of the 90s, so we had 7 massive 4-foot-tall dot matrix printers that did all of the work. These printers were temperamental jerks, and if the paper jammed, the printer did not automatically stop printing. It would just keep pushing and jamming more and more paper onto the machine until, if left untended, it would break down. Running the printer room was a 2-person job. When I started, I trained for 2 full weeks with the 2 current printer room employees. One was being promoted. I was replacing him. It was a rough 2 weeks, let me tell you, getting the hang of the job, the various things you had to learn and do, etc. One thing that made it even more complicated was the fact that each printer had its own personality with its own problems. Another was the fact that a problem in one printer could have a different fix than the exact same problem in another. The job would be quiet for 45 minutes straight, during which we did routine maintenance and such, but was really slow and quiet and restful. because this company processed its shipping orders in batches once an hour. And then, boy, on the hour, every hour, the batch of orders would go through and thousands of orders would come spitting out. Now, if you were on top of things and kept everything running smoothly, the orders would print out very neatly and quickly. But if you didn't know what you were doing, if you didn't maintain things just right, you'd get a backup and things would go horrible very, very fast. And when one machine went down, you had to fix it fast before the next one jammed, because guaranteed those machines would jam up multiple times on every batch print job. So I've been working the print room for several months and things were great. Then my coworker gave his 2 weeks notice. We tried to train my replacement, but he was incredibly lazy and got himself fired a few days after the end of his training, which left me in the printer room alone. Then the bosses informed me that my position is being phased out and I'm going to be replaced by 2 employees transferred from a different department. So not only am I losing my job, but I have to train my replacements. And I desperately needed a good recommendation from this company, so I couldn't just quit or do a crappy job. I quickly learned that both of these transfers are lazy and useless. They'd been with the company for decades, had friends in the head office, and knew their jobs were safe. I'd show them how to do something, and they'd flat out laugh and say, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." Every day, I'd be trying to train them, and they would just ignore me, chat with each other, leave to go sit in the cafeteria, leaving me to do a 2-person job alone. Luckily, I was good enough to handle the workload, but it was annoying. Mindful of the fact that I needed a reference of this company, I kept extensive notes on each day's progress. I clearly documented every single instance of the replacements refusing to help, even listened to my instructions. I also followed up daily with my direct supervisor, and he knew what was going on. And my notes went into the company files and were passed up the line. Despite my scathing reports, head office did nothing. Now it's my last day. This is the day the training process assigned for letting the newbies work alone, with no help or supervision allowed, to see how well they handle the job and the pressure. I was, in writing, forbidden to help them or answer any questions. As I expected, things fell apart pretty much immediately. Minutes into the first batch of orders, one of the biggest printers jammed and the clueless jerks had no idea how to fix the printer jam, because they ignored me every time I tried to show them how. So they turned to me and demand that I fix things. I'm sitting at a desk, coffee in one hand, an apple in the other. I just smile back and say, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." So one of them is yelling at me while the other is basically thumping uselessly on the printer like a gorilla that just found a candy machine. Then a second printer jams. Paper starts spilling out of the back of the first printer, which, if you knew the job, was a really, really bad warning sign. "Well, I'm going to the cafeteria. Good luck," I say as I stand up. As I'm leaving, I hear a third printer break down and jam up. I went to my supervisor and let him know what was happening. He said he not only expected as much, he had predicted so repeatedly to his superiors. He once again specifically forbade me from offering any help, so I went to the cafeteria and read my book for a little over an hour. Then my supervisor comes to me to let me know what happened. The entire printer room is down. Every single printer either jammed up or is actually broken. The company is losing thousands of dollars every single minute. One of the shipper and receiving supervisors finds me, all in a panic, begging me to get the orders printed. "Sorry, I'm not allowed to do that," I replied. Now several people are running around outside the cafeteria, all in a panic, running from place to place, trying to figure out why they don't have any shipping orders. The chaos took hours to resolve, and I wasn't allowed to fix the problems. Anytime someone started giving me a hard time, my supervisor would intervene and show the memo from the bosses stating that I was forbidden to help them in the printer room that day. I spent the entire last day at work drinking coffee, chatting with coworkers, and reading my book. The whole fiasco ended up costing the company tens of thousands of dollars. Am I the jerk for telling my family how much my fiancé earns after years of them making fun of his job? My family is very well educated and full of professionals, including several doctors, surgeons, dentists, etc. I have a good career and I make a good living. When I met my fiancé, he was at my house to supervise a roofing crew the insurance company hired to replace my damaged roof. I instantly fell for him when he pulled up in his truck and couldn't keep my eyes off him for the rest of the day as he gave orders to his men. When we started dating, he was vague about his job, and I just chalked it up to him being insecure about me having a better career. I didn't care about our income imbalance. When we got serious, we talked about our future plans, and that was when he told me the full extent of his little construction company. I was shocked that his construction earnings is as much as my dad's surgeon salary. Gradually, he took me around to the handful of construction lots and shopping centers he owns. His rental income, combined with his construction earnings, is double that of my dad's. He said that few people knew about this, his finances, and he expects me to keep what I know to myself. My parents disapproved of him since the first time I brought him home. My dad coined the term tool boy, and the rest of my family joined in whenever they talked about him behind his back. They don't call him that to his face, but instead just make snide remarks. Once my mom said during dinner that they're thinking about hiring someone to mow their lawn, then turned to my fiance and asked him what he charges. I always try to defend him, and it's a constant battle. It's gotten worse since we're planning our wedding, and the other day, my nerves just broke. Yesterday, my parents were trying to talk me into getting a prenuptial agreement. Then my dad said, "You have to protect your assets, just in case Tool Boy decides to go slumming." I lost it and yelled at my parents. During our shouting, I blurted out his earnings and that he makes more than both of them combined. Then I stormed out. I told my fiance what happened, but instead of supporting me, he got mad that I told my parents that. I argued that I was defending him, then we got into an argument too. My parents and family are mad at me for keeping secrets. My fiance is mad at me for not keeping secrets. I'm stuck in the middle, and I don't know what to do. Sounds like your husband likes to build relationships on foundations and merits outside of his finances. Meanwhile, your family looks down on anyone they deem lesser earners than themselves. I know whose corner I'd be in. Apologize to your husband and tell your family to buzz off. Sorry, but you're the jerk. There are plenty of other things you could have said to illustrate how horrible your family was being. You didn't have to throw out numbers. Now, if your family starts acting better, he'll always know that it's on the basis of his earnings and not his character. Edit. And husband will always know that your knee-jerk reaction was to be like, "But he does make money," rather than, "Who cares what he makes? He makes me happy. He takes care of me. We're good partners with the same life goals. We love each other. Support that or shut up." Edit 2. All right, I'll give OP some leeway, but I still think that there were better ways to go about it. We're perfectly compatible and happy with our mutual finances, which are none of your business. My boyfriend didn't want to pay $200 to save my life. I was at a bar with my boyfriend and his friends a while ago. We all had a great time, dancing on the tables, singing and drinking. I remember feeling totally fine one second, and the next I got very unsteady, and I lost connection with my body. I got confused and scared, but then just so calm. It was all types of weird. Most of what happened I can't even remember now. I became unconscious, and according to my boyfriend, the few times I opened my eyes, they looked very scared. He was told to get a taxi and to take me to the emergency room fast. He managed to get me into the taxi and it started to drive. My boyfriend told me that during the drive, the driver told him that he would have to pay $200 extra if I threw up. Then my boyfriend said, "Oh no," stopped the driver and wanted to walk to the emergency room. I was still unconscious and he didn't know why or if my life was at risk. Luckily for him, the police were driving around and they saw me laying on the ground. They asked him what's up and they drove us to the emergency room with blue lights on and fast. They took it very seriously, and without them, my boyfriend would have been lucky to even get me to the emergency room. Turns out, someone had put something in my drink that night. It got worse as he made me walk with shaky legs from the emergency room the day after. A walk that should have been 20 minutes took me 2 hours. Even started talking about the fact that maybe they put something in his drink too, even though he didn't feel weird at all that night. Then he started to talk about him paying the taxi $40 for the little drive and how much it was, like he wanted me to pay him back or something. He constantly stated that it was $40 and how sick that was. It's the normal price around here. He also ignored me once I said someone was following me. He was never scared of letting me walk around in town at night, but if a female friend did it, then he would have to follow and make sure she's safe. He argues, "Why am I scared?" instead of trying to make me feel better or protecting me. Other than that, he's a kind man, but like, this cannot be normal. Is this relationship worth it? I'm scared I'm overreacting, but keep in mind that most of this is told from his perspective, as I don't even remember that night. Edit. I forgot to say that I asked him what he would have done differently if this happened today, and paying for the taxi was not on the list. Edit 2. I just have to say that he did call for an ambulance, but they didn't show up. According to him, it was one of the first things he did. But he told them I was conscious, and so they didn't feel the need to come. An ambulance is basically free here, meaning it would have saved him money. He would have no reason not to call. Some people also said that I should have paid him back for the taxi, and I agree based on the information I gave you. But I was the one that paid for drinks that night, and I spent a lot more than $40 on him. In total, I spent $176 to be exact. Edit 3. In a way, I wanted you guys to tell me that I was overreacting and that he really tried his best. Seeing that you also find this situation a little messed up makes me feel less crazy though. And yeah, I'll dump him. I think it will be the best for both of us. Let's put it this way. I've done more to help out a passed out stranger than your own boyfriend did to help you. My marriage is falling apart because of my changed lifestyle. I'm a 37-year-old woman. I've been married to my husband, who's 40, for 10 years. We have 2 kids together who are 7 and 4. I never had any issues in my marriage before. After my son was born, I went into deep depression. My life was not in the right track. I was stuck in a dead-end, low-paying job. I was handling my boy alone because my husband was working overtime to feed us. When my daughter came along, I made a decision to change myself. I used to drink a lot. Now I'm sober. I haven't touched a drink in 5 years. I've changed my diet and bad food habits. I go to the gym and I do yoga every morning. My sleep has improved a lot. My mood has improved drastically with just some changes. I do not get irritated easily or become helpless. I have also updated my resume and looked for a job that suits me. I make a decent amount of money now. I get compliments from people around me telling me I look great. I've lost a ton of weight too. I thought my husband would be happy, but he's not. He dislikes that I get compliments from people or when people compliment me in front of him. I didn't see it as a big issue. He used to joke about how people assume he's Adam Sandler who got the hot chick. I used to brush it off as a joke. Then I discovered he was cheating on me with a coffee shop waitress. I don't think her job title matters, but that girl doesn't seem nice to me. I've looked through some of the chats of her and my husband, and she called me an old hag trying to fit in with the young. She lives with her parents and is a high school dropout. She's only 22 years old. I'm devastated. I thought my husband would be happy, but this affair has been going on for 7 months. Despite me working more hours now, I still do all of my wifely duties. I cook for him, make him his lunch for the office, I initiate love and intimacy. Now here I am getting a divorce from him. When I confronted him about the affair, he told me being with me is always overbearing. He feels invisible because most people give me attention, and somehow it's my fault. I was obsessed with myself rather than noticing how this is making him feel. He feels small because he's been stuck in the same place 5 years ago. I just don't get it. I never pushed him to follow my lead. I also told him that I loved him no matter what. Why is this happening? I don't want my kids to grow up in a broken family, but I cannot live with him after what he has said and done. I know he's being insecure, but he didn't have to hurt me like this. I know as a single mom it's tough to survive. People have warned me that my husband could act differently towards me. They were right. I wish it didn't end like this. Update. I'm doing fine. Yes, there's still pain, but things are moving smoothly. I did get my son and daughter to therapy. My son knows why we are divorcing. He gets angry sometimes and throws a fit. My daughter is too young to understand anything. I just want to know how I can handle this. How can I make my son see that none of this is his fault, but his father's? I do not want to keep anything a secret from my kids because I believe the relationship between a couple affects the kids too. I do want him to have a good relationship with his dad, but I do not want him to take a bad lesson from this. The other day I was watching the movie Family That Prays. I know this is silly, but I had this fear inside me that what if my son blames me for the divorce, like Andrea blamed her mother because her father left? What if he turns out just like his own father? I can't control everything that goes inside his head. I try my best to be there for my son, but the constant fear of losing him is still there. My father came to visit me. He lives in a different city. He only knew half the truth. After knowing the full truth, he was very angry. When my ex-husband came to visit our kids, my dad and him got into a huge fight. My dad used to be in the army, so my ex-husband is terrified of him. He threatened to call the police, but my dad shouted, "I'm not afraid of a cockroach like you." I told my dad not to make things more complicated than they already are. I'm trying my best to keep my daily routine. Sleeping has been tough, but I do not want to depend on pills. On the bright side, I have a lot of free time on my hands. I realize that half of my chores have been reduced. I know kids are messy, but there is a huge relief. I do not have to clean crumbs off the table or have rings of water droplets on the coffee table, which annoys me a lot. Things stay in their place. I started to notice my husband was the one who made half of the mess and I was the one who cleaned it. Last week, I went to the theater with my son and daughter to watch Barbie. We were accompanied by my friend who's also a single mom of 2. I wore a costume and we had a lot of fun. I'm still trying my best to stay afloat and I'm not thinking about dating. I do not have the urge to date at the moment. I did get hit on in a few places, but nothing exciting. I'll see you guys later. Fired from Walgreens I never worked at. So this was some 10 years ago, and while the conversation is paraphrased, I remember it like it was yesterday. Background. At the time, I was working grave and swing as a casino player's host in Reno. For those who don't know what this job is, we take care of the high rollers, make sure they get comps, dining and hotel reservations, get invites to tournaments, limo rides, you name it. I wore a nice black blazer with a name tag, slacks, comfortable but professional shoes, hair and makeup done. The days I worked swing, I was off at 3 a.m., but after waiting for bus and the ride home, I would make it to my place at about 5 a.m. Directly across the street from my home was a Walgreens. I stopped in a lot of mornings to grab a protein shake, pick up prescriptions, etc. But on Wednesday mornings, they put out a lot of clearance items. You could snag small appliances dirt cheap, so I was always there on Wednesdays stocking up on Christmas and birthday presents, etc. The employees and manager knew me by sight, and some knew me by name. I was usually a zombie after work, I think like most people are. And this Wednesday was no different. I was looking over the latest selection, trying to decide if I needed a new coffee maker or just wanted one because it was clearanced for $5. A woman was next to me, speaking Tagalog into her phone. I don't speak it, but Reno has a pretty large Filipino community, so I could at least recognize it. Her language is not important to the story. It just struck me how odd the little things we remember are. She finished her conversation and looked at me. "Can I get a discount on this?" I don't remember what the item was, some small appliance. "The box is smashed up." "No idea," I told her, but I would ask to plug it in to test it before I bought it if the box is damaged. I have no idea if anyone can actually do that, but it seemed reasonable to me. "Why would you sell something that doesn't work?" she demanded. I had no idea at this point that she thought I worked there. I thought she was making conversation. In my defense, I was half asleep and just wanted a good deal on a darn stick blender. "Oh," I told her, "I absolutely wouldn't sell it, but I'm not in the business of selling things anyway." "Oh, so you are too good and important to sell things. That is just for the low employees?" I finally looked at her. Until then, I was pretty focused on staying awake. I could see she was getting angry. It dawned on me that I still had my name tag on. I slipped it off. They're the kinds with magnets, not pins, and stuck it in my pocket. "Oh, sorry, I forgot to take this off. I don't actually—" I started to say that I didn't work there, but she was having none of it. "Oh, you think you are too good to help me? Just because of who I am? My money is too good for you?" She said something in Tagalog that did not sound flattering. "You think you can trick me taking off your name tag?" I just sighed. "I don't want your money. I don't work here. I'm shopping. Please leave me alone." She ignored everything that I just said except for, "Oh, you won't be getting my money because you need to give me this for free for not helping me." "Ma'am," I tried to reason with her, "I can't give you that. I really don't work here. If you take it without paying, that's stealing." "Oh, now you think I'm poor and a thief?" What? Where did this come from? "I want to talk to the manager of the store." "Lady," I turned back to the shelf, "I wish you would talk to anyone but me." She stomped off, her heels making a tick-tick sound on the linoleum. I decided I did need another coffee maker and that stick blender. As I was putting both in my cart, I hear the tick of her shoes. Great, she's back. But she's not alone. Tom, the store manager, was with her. "There she is, the woman who called me a poor thief. I want you to fire her and make her the poor one." Weird obsession with poverty. Tom looked at me confused. "What's going on here?" I grinned and held up my coffee maker. "Just shopping." Tom was even more confused. But why are you insulting her?" "She thinks I work here and wants me to help her steal an appliance." Okay, I know it's a bit of an exaggeration, but she's the one who started it. This was the moment that her medication stopped working. In a very loud mix of English and Tagalog, she shrieked out our entire interaction. Surprisingly, she told it correctly too, except that I didn't put my name tag away to trick her. Tom was done at this point. He just looked at me and said, "You're fired." The woman grinned maliciously at me, grabbed her smashed up box and stormed off with Tom as I shrugged and made my way over to the allergy medications. At the register, Tom asked me what really happened. I told him everything, including how I told her I wished that she'd talk to anyone but me. Tom laughed and told me that I was still fired. Yay, I grinned. Do I get a severance package? Tom laughed harder. To be fair, you did lose it on her. Plus, you don't actually work here. So no severance package. That's it. I shopped there for many years before I moved. I never saw her again, so I'm sure she went on content with getting me fired and making me poor. Am I the jerk for getting angry because my boyfriend ate my food? I'm a stay-at-home mom. I do all of the cooking, cleaning, and anything kid-related. We're a family of 5. I make sure dinner is served before my boyfriend comes home at 5, because I know that he's always starving from working hard and providing for our family. So when it comes to dinner, I'm always the last to eat. After serving everyone and making sure everyone has their juice and whatever else they need, as a result, I'm usually the last to sit and enjoy my meal. Well, this day was no different. I made Chinese food, fried rice, orange chicken, walnut prawns, and my all-time favorite, egg rolls. I served everyone. I took meds to settle my stomach and sat down to wait for them to work. I made my boyfriend's plate stacked with rice and plenty of egg rolls. When he got his plate, he immediately asked if there was enough for seconds. I explained to him that I hadn't eaten yet and that there may be some leftovers after I serve myself up a plate. There wasn't much left. There was a spoonful of rice left and extra egg rolls. I made extra because they're my favorite. I sat down on the couch and conversed with my boyfriend about his day. I watched as he polished off his food. He got up to take his plate to the kitchen, came back chewing. I didn't think anything of it. He tends to eat the scraps off our kids' plates, so I thought nothing of it. He got up a few more times, still munching, and came back with a beverage. Again, I haven't eaten because I'm waiting for my meds to kick in. 20 minutes passed at this point, and my stomach is ready for the food I just spent hours making. I go in the kitchen, and all of my egg rolls are gone. I was immediately upset. I told him I hadn't eaten yet, told him not to touch the food until after I ate. When I confronted him, he said, "Eat one off the kid's plate." I cooked and served everyone, and this is how I'm treated? He then offered to make me more, and I declined, as these are not store-bought, ready-made egg rolls. These are from scratch, rolled up, and then fried egg rolls. So no, he couldn't make me more. To make a long story short, I didn't eat. I was upset, and I went to bed hungry. No apology or anything. Am I the jerk for still being angry 2 days later? I've also boycotted cooking and anything related to my stay-at-home mom duties. Not the jerk. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he prioritized his greed over your need. Not okay under any circumstances. That was disgusting. He showed you who he truly values, and it's not you. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter that she is smart and hardworking, but not gifted? My wife and I both have electrical engineering degrees, but I no longer work in the field, and I'm a manager now. We have a daughter who's 15 and a son who's 17, and both will be headed to university next month. My son is doing a BA and has not yet picked his major, and my daughter will be studying physics and computer science. My son is also very smart and is a history and language nerd. My daughter is smart and hardworking and is attending at an earlier age than usual. She was in a school program for gifted kids. We were having a conversation at dinner the other day, and my wife mentioned how proud she was of our daughter and how lucky we were to have gifted kids going to a good university program, and how not many people can do what our daughter did. I was also very happy, but I said that while daughter is very hardworking and smart, I would not say that she is actually gifted, and others can do it if they put in the same amount of work. Her school does a lot to try to admit girls into her program, and my wife helped teach her advanced college-level math and physics from an earlier age. She didn't naturally pick it up on her own. If anything, being a younger applicant with the same credentials probably helped her stand out more for the admissions committee. I have seen how people can ruin their lives over thinking they are gifted and it go into their heads, so I just wanted to caution her about that. Both my wife and daughter are upset at me now. My wife thinks I was trying to put her down, which is not true, and says that she is gifted, while my daughter actually agrees with me, but says I should not have said it as she already knows it. Am I the jerk here? It might not come across in the post, but I am genuinely proud and happy for my kids, and beyond what I described here, there was a lot of complimenting and celebration on my part. You're the jerk. Putting your daughter down served no positive purpose. Discouraging a young teen like that can have serious detrimental effects. Even if she isn't actually gifted, you were the jerk. That being said, she is gifted. Not every 15-year-old can go to a university to study physics. Not only is she gifted academically, she's gifted with drive and determination. Not everyone has that, and you tried to put her down. Well, what do you think? Is Dad a jerk for saying his daughter's not gifted or not? Please let us know. She sounds pretty gifted to me. What's wrong with you, Daddy-o? Karen demands my husband's parking spot permanently. Not gonna happen, lady. Our car was stolen in June and then returned to us at the end of July. It's being worked on, and my husband has had to tell our neighbor's mother, who visits, that she can no longer park in our parking spot. All well and good until today when I'm coming home from some errands. The lady is on our stoop asking for my husband and if there's any way that he can extend her parking allowance in our spot. She explains she's moving into the townhouse next to us to help care for her grandkids, and she sees that our car is a lost cause. She has said that us losing our car was great, Now she can park closer to the townhouse and not have to park on the street. What I told her and what my roommate/landlord has told her is this. The car is being returned and instated in October, and you have until then to make arrangements. This woman, who I'm assuming has no sense of reality, said the chances of our car ever working is nigh, and that we should just give her the parking spot. Our townhouses have assigned parking and guest parking spots are adjacent. I told her she'll have to wait until my husband gets home and talk to him. She literally said she won't talk to him and will just take the spot whenever she wants, regardless of if we get our car working or not. The car is currently at my husband's father's being worked on. I know it seems petty, but I'm considering calling a tow truck the next time she does this. Update. Neighbor, who is the son of the woman, has gotten involved and he sides with us on the matter. He also has told his mother to park in the guest parking spots from now on or don't even come over at all. She also lied to me about moving in. Big surprise there. So far, I was given a blessing if she does it again to call a tow truck. We did have someone park in our spot, but he asked if it was okay. He was part of a home inspection because one of our neighbors is selling his townhouse and was only there for 30 minutes. Save the tow company number in your phone. She'll get the hint the first time that her wish.com attempt at bullying you won't work. Not petty at all. People like your neighbor won't respond to calm, logical reasoning. She just gave you a heads up that she will take the parking spot and you can lump it. You can waste time and energy and breath trying to reason with her, but in the end, you'll be at the same point. You'll need to tow her car to get the point across. She's a bully and she's gonna bully you if you let her. This must be a tactic that often works for her. I broke up with my boyfriend on his birthday for catfishing someone when he was younger. I, 26 female at the time, had just started dating Thomas, 28 male, and things seemed promising. Very sweet man, educated, and quite smart, good looks. After 7 weeks of dating, he invited me and 2 of his childhood friends, let's call them Alex and Bart, for a long 29th birthday celebration weekend at his father's country house in a small French town. His father was going to be around as well, and I was very excited to meet everyone. Day 1, Friday, is fun. I'm happy to get along well with Thomas' father, a smart and caring man. Day 2, Saturday. After a very nice day, we enjoy a party in the garden with the neighbors, including some friends of Thomas. After a few hours and lots of drinks, a group of people gather around a small campfire and start sharing childhood memories. This is where things go wrong. At first, of course, innocent and dumb stories as you would expect. But then, Thomas and his friends started sharing really sick stuff. In particular, they told a story about how, when they were 14 or 15, they found very amusing to bully for almost 6 months Arthur, a boy of their school who was very isolated and shy, making jokes, calling him names, you name it. As if this was not enough, they created a fake girl profile on MSN Messenger, a computer platform to exchange live messages that we used back in the 2000s, and they spent months exchanging messages with them under the false girl identity, flirting and developing a false relationship with them. Some people were in on this at school, and it became a big and cruel joke behind Arthur's back. They used pictures of Bart's real cousin, and the boy truly thought he had some kind of online girlfriend to whom he even sent confessions and love messages. At some point, they got bored and scheduled a false rendezvous in real life, asking the boy to take a bus for 2 or 3 hours, wearing a t-shirt of Elmer and the Elephant, based on a private joke. Obviously, there was no one waiting for him, and they did not know how long he waited over there, all by himself. If Arthur had not already understood what was going on, he found out the next day at school after Thomas and Bart told the story to everyone and even shared the love messages that Arthur had been writing. The poor guy stopped coming to class and apparently changed schools, and it's easy to imagine that this must have really taken a toll on him. Do you think that Thomas, Alex, and Bart had a bit of shame about it? Not a bit of remorse, in particular on Thomas and Bart's side. They kept making jokes about it and even seemed to regret that they didn't take it further. To say that I felt uncomfortable would be a gross understatement. I was absolutely horrified and started to despise Thomas more than anything. I was not the only one who was shocked. Thomas' father, who heard the end of the story, had the most disappointed look in his eyes. His stupid son was so drunk that he didn't even notice it. I escaped the party immediately after that and got back to the house. I couldn't sleep at all this night, and I kept thinking about the evening and how Thomas was still finding this funny. I heard him come to bed around 4 a.m., but I pretended I was already asleep. Day 3, Sunday, was the actual birthday, and the initial plan was that I would make Thomas a one-on-one fancy surprise date for lunch nearby, and we would meet the group for a late afternoon party. But instead, I woke up very early on Sunday morning, took all of my stuff in silence, and went alone to the train station where I took a direct train heading back to Paris. I decided to send a text to Thomas wishing him a happy birthday and telling him to meet me at a certain location 1 hour from the house for a surprise, and that I needed to go a little bit in advance to make sure everything would be perfect. I had picked the location randomly using Google Maps to gain time. Thomas read the text around 10 a.m. when he woke up. He responded with excitement that he would follow religiously the instructions. When he arrived there at 12:30, I told him to wait further as there was a little delay on something. Then I asked him to meet me at a restaurant, which was a 30-minute drive from the initial location. When he arrived at 1:15, I texted him that I was on my way, would arrive in 20 minutes, and that he'll understand when he sees me why I made him wait. I also asked him to order some food and the most expensive bottle on the menu. Around 1:30, he started calling me several times and sent me a lot of worried texts, and after 45 minutes, I responded, in French, "So, how does it feel to have people play with your feelings?" Then I stopped responding. I let him call and text the entire afternoon, but I never responded. At some point, an unknown number called me. It was his friend Alex asking what was going on and that Thomas' birthday was completely ruined because of what I did. I just responded, "This is an extremely small payback for what you did to Arthur. Tell Thomas to stop calling me," and I hung up. I blocked them all. I still felt bad the entire evening as I had started to grow attached to Thomas back then. The following days, a common friend called me to say that my reaction was completely absurd and unfair, that it was not my role to punish someone for actions they did back when they were a teenager, that there were adult ways of saying things, and that I had been completely crazy. Only a few people supported what I did. Everyone else seemed to think that I was a jerk. Thomas tried to fix things and win me back for a few months afterwards. I never responded to any of his messages. I don't regret it. I simply hope that Arthur, who should be about 35 or 36 by now, is well. Edit. About Thomas' father, he was actually one of the few people understanding my actions. He called me shortly after the incident to discuss an unrelated topic. I was to give him a list of recommendations about something, and was already aware of everything. He didn't badmouth his son, but I could really feel that he was disappointed. He simply told me that he had not found sleep the night of Saturday to Sunday because of what he had heard during the party. He told me that he appreciated meeting me and expressed regret that I was not with his son anymore, but also said that he understood my reasons. He did not try to convince me to get back with Thomas. This man was truly a gentleman. I don't know what became of Arthur. I don't even know his last name. I think that even if I did know his name, I wouldn't have reached out to him by fear of making him remember things that he probably wants to forget. I hope he's a confident man now, and that he still likes Elmer the elephant. Good for you. It's usually not right to hold someone accountable for dumb things they did as a teenager, as some of your acquaintances have asserted. The thing is, you're not holding him accountable for that. You're holding him accountable for thinking that his behavior was acceptable well after he became an adult. He didn't feel remorse about it at all, and wasn't telling the story about some stupid thing he did as a teen but would never do again and wished he hadn't done it. He was proud of it. Holding him accountable for that, for being who he was during that birthday party, was entirely acceptable, and you did a wonderful job of it. My husband refuses to give up his gym girlfriend or even talk about the issue. On Father's Day, I noticed my husband texting and smiling with someone, ignoring or not seeing me when I invited him to the table for breakfast. I got closer so he could notice me, and I saw that he was texting an unknown woman. We've been married for 4 years, and we have a preschooler and a 1-year-old together. I didn't bring it up besides asking, "Who's that?" since my mom was in town visiting. When I mentioned it later, I said I didn't know making friends of the opposite gender and not saying anything about it was okay for us. He didn't volunteer anything, but when pressed further, mentioned that he had been working out with her, which I know is 3 to 4 days a week for 2 to 3 hours before work most mornings. He ended up admitting that he didn't tell me about her because he knew I'd get mad. Moreover, that he'll be working out with whoever he wants to. Fast forward several one-sided, vulnerable conversations, and 2 months after a lot of feeling sick to my stomach and sleepless nights, I finally laid it out. I didn't give him an ultimatum. I simply told him I can't sleep, that I feel heartbroken and constantly concerned, that if I was doing the same thing, he'd feel awful, and crickets. I asked how long it was going to last and was met with, "There's no sign-up sheet in the gym." I told him I can't imagine continuing our relationship feeling like this and needed to know in words how he felt. He reported feeling the same, that I'm his wife and he loves me. My boundary is acknowledged and so far unenforced. It's not that I think that he's cheating on me, yet. It's that he won't budge or say anything knowing that I'm hurting. I feel like I'm getting more heartbroken daily. The impulse to check his phone is hard to resist at times. I don't want to leave, but I need more than this lack of response from him. Update. When he left for work this morning, a day later, I told him to think about what I said throughout the week. I appreciate the support, including the comments that bring up I may be jealous or have let my body go, or especially that I have been too permissive as a wife. I'm completely open to criticism in my personal arena. Update 2. At no point have I asked him to stop going to the gym or working out with her. I told him I wouldn't ask that he's free to do what he likes, but that he should think of something he's comfortable with to address the issue and rebuild trust. I suggested having her over for dinner. You can guess how that went. He said nothing. FYI, he's bodybuilding and commuting 40 minutes to get to this gym by work, 30 miles away. He leaves at 4 in the morning to go to the gym, so confrontation is not a possibility. I can't get childcare at that time, nor do I have a friend that can follow him all the way out there at that hour, unless I have a volunteer. So many of you are absolutely right. The lack of response to me is the problem, independent of this other woman. I don't have family to run to besides his mom. If you tell your partner that something hurts you and they keep doing it, it's no longer unintentional. Sorry, OP, your husband is a fool. You have a right to feel the way you do. He's taking advantage of your marriage and especially you. His response to your feelings is not the way a loving husband would react. He says he loves you, but his actions say otherwise. Plus, he answered the text right in front of you on Mother's Day with your mom there. How disrespectful of him. You deserve better. Good luck. I was a gym goer for many years, and I always chatted with everyone, just my nature. I always worked out alone, my preference. It's not the fact that he has a female workout partner, it's the fact he didn't let you know, and it appears he doesn't even care you're upset by it. The fact he's texting her just to chit-chat isn't right, especially him knowing how you feel. The only text should be if one of them has to cancel. Sorry, but you sound way jealous, controlling, and manipulative. We need to stop normalizing controlling who our partners are friends with. My wife has tons of guy friends that she spends time with, and I never question her about any of them. Because I trust her, and I know that she loves me and would never do anything to hurt me. Are some of them attractive? Sure. But I know when she goes out with them to, say, a bar or a club, it's just as friends. And if they were to ever try something on her, she would shut it down quickly. Learn to trust your husband and stop trying to control who he spends time with like it's the 50s. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. That last commenter though. Am I the jerk for retiring and moving to South America like everybody knew that I planned to since I was 16? I, male 55, just pulled the pin on my retirement. I put in 33 years of work and I'm done. I bought property in South America 12 years ago and I've been building our retirement home down there. I have dual citizenship, so I can own property without it being a hassle. The house was designed to be perfect for us. We have a pool, a small house for the caretaker and hardener, and 34 different fruit trees. The bathroom is up to North American standards, and the shower has grab bars and stuff already built in for when I'm old. Everything is on one level, so there are no stairs. My wife helped by making suggestions to the design of the house and by taking care of decorating it. We've been vacationing there for 8 years now and renting it out when we aren't there for some extra money. We've hosted friends and family there, both with us there and on their own. My wife has now decided that she doesn't want to live there for 7 months of the year. We have grandkids now, and she wants to be more involved in their lives. I love my kids and my grandkids, and my parents who also live up here, but I'm done with winter. If I never see snow again, it will be too soon. The house has guest rooms and flights are cheap. If they want to see me in the winter, they're welcome to come down. Plus, I'll be back for 5 months in the summer to do some contract work. I'll see everyone then. My wife said she didn't want to go down this winter and that it's absolutely her right. I booked my flight for September and she asked me about the expense on the credit card. I said I was leaving for the winter like I had told everyone I planned to do. That is when she said that she didn't want to go this winter actually meant she didn't want us to go this winter. I said that I was going and that I would see her in the spring unless she changed her mind and came down. Now her, my parents, and my kids are bugging me about leaving her alone for the winter. It's 100% her choice. Not the jerk. This is going to be a problem for the rest of your life. She has grandbabies, and many grandparents don't want to miss out on the growth and fun of grandbabies. You don't even want to come back for the holidays? That may be a jerk move, and for sure your wife would want to be around for the holidays. September is very early to be a snowbird. Where are you from that winter starts that early? Things change, dude. 35 years ago, I bet you didn't think grandkids would anchor your wife, but here you are. My mom had planned a big move to Tennessee from Illinois, bought a house, cars, moved all this stuff ready to move in, until my daughter was born. Now she's selling the house in Tennessee as she can't imagine living without being involved in her life. Wifey changed with grandkids. Sucks it's this late, but it seems you're unwavering in your conviction with your plan, which you have every right to do and even communicated to her about it. Not the jerk, but I'm pretty sure your wife's values have changed and she didn't really communicate that to you very well. Hopefully snowbirding won't crash your relationship. Best of luck. How a local doctor got the best malicious compliance against my boss. Somewhere around 2007, I was working as a drugstore manager, running the entire front store and the pharmacy. Pay was excellent for someone who was in their early to mid-20s, but the job was also soul-crushing in some stupid ways. A rule came down that cashiers can no longer have drinks at the register. They can drink on their lunch breaks and otherwise shouldn't need water. At the same time, they dialed back the AC, so the store was constantly uncomfortably warm, but not technically dangerous. I had some of the best staff. One lady was roughly 65 and came to me to let me know she was on medicine that gave her dry mouth, so she needed me to know if I took her water away, she would really have a hard time being able to talk to customers. She almost developed a lisp when she couldn't have her water. I told her no worries, have your water. I'll deal with my boss when he sees you someday. Because he was running 40 stores and mine was generally not a problem store, he only came by every 60 days or so. Eventually, he does swing in and asks her about her water. She says she has a medical condition and I told her it was fine. I also told him I had approved the water. He pulls me into the office to let me know that for her to have that water, she needs a doctor's note. If he sees her with it again without a note, we both get written warnings. He explains that is because not following the company rule can't be a decision made by me. I'm flabbergasted. I'm just the manager in charge of the store. This company literally made me do drills on how to deal with horrible, dangerous things, but I can't even approve a bottle of water? It must be an exception deemed necessary for medical needs. I explain this is stupid. He actually agrees, but says that he's also following orders from above. Great. I pull my cashier aside and I tell her what's up. I said I'm really sorry, but can she please get her doctor to fax a stupid note over so we can cover ourselves? She got a little gleam in her eye, and I was excited to see what it meant. Her next shift, she rolls in and says, "You're gonna love this." She hands me about 100 copies of a letter that says something along the lines of, "I do solemnly state that cashier is medically a human being and requires water on regular intervals while working and not solely during breaks. This was a massive waste of my time, and your company should be ashamed of yourself. I will be recommending your competitor as much as humanly possible to my patients who fill prescriptions in this town for the rest of my natural life. Doctor." The next 40 were identical letters, each with a different staff member listed, as my genius cashier had snagged an old schedule with first names and last initials. The rest had a blank space for me to fill in new hire names so our staff could all have drinks on the sales floor. My boss wasn't even mad. None of the higher-ups above him ever mentioned it on a store walk, so I assume I was covered in a meeting of people higher up than me. My daughter chose her stepdad to walk her down the aisle. I, 46 male, have one daughter who's 26, whose mom ran off when she was 7 and came back when she was 15, claiming she wanted a relationship. She gave it a chance and apparently got really close to her new stepdad. Apparently, he's a really cool guy and likes similar things to her, like hockey, and he also plays guitar like my daughter. I initially thought that it was great she was bonding with her stepdad and her mom. She's getting married to her fiancé who's 30. She's been dating him for 4 years now. I pitched in for the wedding, as did her mom, upwards of $25,000. The day is fast approaching, and she told me that she's chosen her stepdad to walk her down the aisle, as they've really bonded over the past 11 years. I didn't say anything at the time, but I've already decided that I will not be going, as I won't be disrespected like this. If she wants to be a happy family with her mom who abandoned her for 8 years, go for it, but count me out. It wasn't either of them who went to all her hockey games. It wasn't them who paid for her tutoring for exams. It wasn't them who went through the financial hardship of working 3 jobs until she was 17 to support us. And it wasn't them who was there when she got her milestones. It was me. I won't be telling her I'm not coming. I just won't show. I can only assume it's because stepdad got to be the fun dad. He didn't have any real responsibility. She'll figure it out when she really needs help, and mom and stepdad have that confused look on their faces. At 26, she should be old enough to not just be picking the fun dad. Why can't both dads walk her down the aisle? Who says things have to be traditional? OP. I ain't walking with that man. I've literally never spoken to him, and she said she wants him. She never said she wants both of us. Update. So I took your guys' advice and I spoke with my daughter and decided before that even if she didn't change her mind, I wouldn't miss her wedding or cut her off. I spoke to her and let her know that this choice has hurt me and that if she still wants her stepdad to walk her down the aisle, that's her choice, but I won't support her, but will be there to support her. She said she still wants me there, but that her mom has apparently said she wants stepdad to walk her down the aisle as a way of accepting him into the family. She said if she refuses, she won't be coming, and neither will stepdad, and she will never speak to them again. I asked if she really wants them in her life, setting demands to maintain a relationship, and you'll never guess who I got a furious call from. Her mother. She was saying I manipulated her into saying she never wants to see them again and uninvited them. I will be, in 3 months' time, walking my daughter down the aisle. Am I the jerk for wanting to move out over lemonade? I, 22 female, moved back home to live with my parents 2 years ago. My family has always been very close, and my parents actually initiated my moving in so I could focus on building my savings. Everything's been great. The house is huge, so no one's living on top of each other, and my mom has been ecstatic over all her kids being home. I take care of my space as well as shared spaces, doing chores, etc. They've refused any rent or grocery money I've ever offered, insisting I save most of the money I make. My mom grocery shops for the house and always asks each family member what they need from the store for the week. I always ask for a 12-pack of canned lemonade. They're my weak spot. I have 1 or 2 a day. My mom has never really had a problem getting them for me before. Recently, though, she's been resistant. Thinking it was about the money, I offered to give her the $5, and when that didn't help, I just started getting it myself, but she still glares at me when I drink it. I kept asking what the issue is, but she just walks away, and next time I see her, she changed the subject entirely. Things came to a head yesterday when I came home from work with some of my personal groceries, including lemonade. My mom lost it, crying and carrying on about how I don't care about how anyone else feels. I'm at a complete loss, trying to calm her down, when she tells me if I'm going to continue with these habits, I won't do it under her roof. Hearing that, I admit I did snap a little. I was hurt that she would threaten to kick me out for any reason, considering how close we've always been, but especially since I don't think I've done anything even remotely wrong. We got in a huge back and forth, mainly with me demanding she tell me what's so wrong with me drinking some darn lemonade, and her sneering at me saying, "You know." I eventually stormed off to my room, feeling torn. My brother came in shortly after to talk. He says he understands completely where I'm coming from, but is suggesting I do what she's asking me to and just stop drinking the lemonade. I absolutely could, but at this point, it's sort of the principle. I know I'm living with my parents, but I'm an adult and feel I should be allowed to drink my preferred beverage whenever I please, especially if I'm now paying for it and going out to purchase it myself. It's just lemonade, but it goes both ways. My mom shouldn't care about it either because it's just lemonade. If she's insisting I stop drinking it or else I'm getting kicked out, I kind of want to take the initiative and just leave. I have plenty saved at this point. I feel bad because she's my mom. She's been so good to me and has given me the chance to gather the savings I now have. I also feel bad for yelling at her. Me getting worked up didn't help the situation. Am I the jerk for how I acted, or would I be the jerk if I left over this? Update. I asked my mom if we could sit down tonight and have a calm conversation about what happened. My dad wasn't home, but I asked my brother to be there too, as sort of a mediator. It was a long, emotional, draining talk, and there isn't a whole lot of resolution, but it was very enlightening finally. I expressed to her that I'm mostly concerned for her since her reaction to something seemingly so small has been increasingly intense, and it's starting to affect our relationship. I expressed that I felt confused and sought clarity, and that I felt hurt by her threats to kick me out in general because that's not the kind of relationship we have. I told her I truly don't know what was up with the lemonade and practically begged her to open up. She started getting teary, but was mostly calm. Here's her side. Apparently, in May, when this all started, she watched a documentary. They're kind of her thing, and she watches a variety of genres. This particular documentary was about eating disorders. It discussed the culture and history behind it, the influence of social media, and the warning signs. My mom happened to see a lot of the warning signs in me and my behaviors. I'm going to clarify here that I do not and have never struggled with an eating disorder of any kind. Some of the behaviors are as follows. She rarely sees me eat, I'm relatively skinny, I wear layers most of the time, I have an Apple Watch, and of course I drink low-calorie drinks, namely zero-sugar lemonade, which I didn't think to mention in the original post because I honestly didn't even think it would be relevant in any way. So basically, she's been anxious this entire time that I'm withering away. And every time she's alluded or asked or demanded I stop drinking my diet lemonade and I continue drinking it anyway, I'm being selfish, flaunting my disordered behaviors and proving to her that I am in fact sick. That was a lot to take in. I genuinely didn't think it would be that. Never once occurred to me. I defended myself for every point she made, which I will make again here. I work at a restaurant nearly every day, usually afternoon into the night, so I'm rarely home for dinner or lunch. I get free food at my job, and pretty much every server there eats at least one of their meals during break, myself included. By the time I get home, I'll have a snack or something before bed since it's late, and in the morning I sometimes have breakfast at home, but a lot of times I'm not hungry in the AM, so I just do my thing until I leave, usually around noon, and I pick up food with friends or alone on my own. I know it's not the healthiest of habits, nor is it the healthiest foods, but I'm definitely not starving myself or counting calories. But in my worrywart mother's eyes, she hardly ever actually sees me eat. When she does see me eat, I also don't eat large portions, but I don't think that's odd since I'm not a large person. I'm 5 feet tall and around 110 pounds. I wear layers because it's the fashion that I like, sort of vintage 70s grungy look. I have an Apple Watch for the same reason I assume most people do, which is, why not? It's my dad's old one. Also, it's helpful for when I'm at work since I can't carry my phone around. I'm not tracking my steps or anything. And lastly, I honestly, genuinely, truly just like zero sugar lemonade. Has nothing to do with the calories or health reasons, I just like it. I used to drink regular until they were out of stock one day, so I got zero sugar and found I liked it better because it wasn't as thick or syrupy. That's it. She cried, I cried, she apologized, and so did I. I'm not really sure where we go from here since I can tell she doesn't fully believe me. I'm going to make more of an effort to eat my meals at home, but I'm not going to pig out in front of her just to appease a generally unfounded worry she developed from watching a movie. I might also cut back on the lemonades since they're clearly a trigger for her, and I need to drink more water anyway. Other than that, I don't think I did anything wrong to now need to change my behaviors in an extreme way. I told her, and my brother seconded this, that she needs to stop holding this stuff in and just talk to people, because otherwise it creates misunderstandings like this, and I honestly did feel very hurt by the things she said during our fight, and also with how weirdly distant she's been treating me since all this happened. My brother added that if she had been right about what was going on with me, the way she went about it wasn't helpful at all and likely would have made it worse. She explained she didn't ever really intend to kick me out, even if I was sick. She just wanted to shock me into admitting I needed help or something. My mom is demanding I love my stepsister even though she's a brat. My mom married her husband when I was 12. He had a 2-year-old daughter at the time who had no mom, so my mom fell madly for her as well and considers this her kid too. I never had anything against her back then, but I won't pretend I started caring about her all that much either, or that I saw her as my sister. My mom and her husband spoil her rotten and have allowed her to become a very demanding kid. She will tell people what to do and will scream if you don't follow what she wants. This started when she was like 4 and has gotten worse in the last 4 years. She will demand someone play tea parties with her, and if they say no, screams at the top of her lungs at you. She tells you to put something on TV, and if you don't, same response with the screaming. Wants a piggyback ride and is told no, screaming also loud. At the park and wants to be the only one on the slide, screams. She's had several notes sent home from school with complaints about this. My mom and her husband even got called in at the end of this past school year to talk about how they feel she needs to mature and have this behavior nipped in the bud. I find her so annoying that I do my best to avoid her now, which is easier since I moved out. Not too long ago, my mom was asking if I would be coming home on weekends when my training starts, and I told her I probably wouldn't. She asked why, and I said because I was busy. She suggested they could come here and stay with me for a weekend. I told her not to. She asked me why. I told her I didn't want her stepdaughter in my apartment. She told me she's my little sister and misses me, and I should spend some time with her. I said nah and pointed out her behavior. She told me how wrong it was to feel that way about her, and I said I'm not the only one, and I won't be. I told her the difference is she and her husband love her, but not everyone will, and then her behavior will just keep getting doors shut in her face. As it is, she had several birthday party invites rescinded from January to May this year. My mom told me saying I don't love her is awful and that I've known her for most of her life, and she has adored me since day one. She said she was ashamed of how cold I could be to the kid. I don't think she really gets it, but maybe she's right. Am I the jerk? You are not the jerk. Your mom and stepdad are being really short-sighted. No one is going to want to be around your stepsister, and it's all their fault. Yup, stepsister's behavior is obviously horrible, but OP's mom and stepdad are the real jerks here. Not the jerk. I don't understand how people think others are horrible for genuinely not wanting to be around poorly behaved kids, or kids at all. They're raising a brat, plain and simple. If my math's right and I didn't miss something, she should be 8. By now, she should be able to accept no as an answer. If it continues, she's going to have a heck of a time in the next few years. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for the way they said this or not? Please let us know. Not at all. No one likes screaming brats. Hit, run, return, refund. I work at a fast food joint. For context, our store has 2 windows, one for collecting and the other is to hand out food. They also have 2 bright yellow poles on either side, so it's not hard to miss. At least I didn't think so. The past week or so, I've had an increase on people driving past this window into the food one. This causes issues, especially in rushes, but yesterday it caused an issue I had yet to experience. I wasn't working drive-thru, but I had a clear line of sight of the second window. I was slicing tomatoes when I hear a loud honk. I immediately drop my tomatoes and look at the window. Normally, if a customer honks, they're mad. Someone forgot something or their food was made wrong. As the manager, I have to go play peacekeeper. I make eye contact with the woman sitting there who has a deer in the headlights look and she peels away. Definitely confused. Someone doesn't honk for no reason, and I know my crew hadn't talked to her since I'd been the closest staff member anyway. I dip into the front. I'm trying to find someone to tell me what happened. All 3 of my front people are crowded around the first window. I look at them and say, what happened with that lady? As if they were waiting to present to me this glorious scene, they all immediately scuttle behind me. A hilarious sight as I'm the smallest person on staff. I don't need an explanation at this point. A truck sat in my window. The front was an absolute mess. I honestly wouldn't have trusted it to turn on myself. My crew were whispering behind me about how mad the driver was going to be. He was getting out and I was being pushed towards him. I brace myself. He takes a second to look at it, then looks at me and chuckles. That was crazy. I relax a little bit and smile. Did she back into you? Yeah, I guess she missed the window and she didn't see me. This caused both of us to laugh. His truck is huge. It was a pickup, but lifted and definitely a bit bulkier than what I normally see. I'm not a car person, so that's the best description you'll get. Its engine was also so loud, he actually had to turn it off before he even stepped out so we could hear him talk. She was also in a little bug. There's no way she could have missed him. At this point, I switch back into manager mode. I ask him if he'd like us to speak with his insurance company. Would he like me to keep his info in case she comes back later? At least let me give you a discount. He said no to everything I offered. Honestly, I can't even tell where she hit me. This thing's had so many accidents, I only use it for work. Good thing I'm on my break. That's a relief to hear. Though he insisted on paying for all his food, I accidentally forgot his fries were smalls. Uh-oh, made that a large and they're ready in the bag. For health reasons, I can't take them back out. You enjoy. I wish this is where the story ended. Next day, I'm in the office doing manager stuff when there's a knock on my door. I look up. I've worked with my crew long enough to know when someone just met a Karen. OP, this lady up at my window. I'm already up and walking to the front. I didn't hear what the lady's issue was, but I already know it's gonna be something stupid and annoying. I look out the window and think, that woman looks familiar. Wait, I recognize that blue bug. Uh-oh. I open the window. Hey, what seems to be the issue here? I came through here yesterday. Okay. I ordered, but I never got my food. I want it now. That's strange. Do you have a receipt? No, but I paid. Side note, she definitely didn't pay. Only managers can delete orders, which I had to do when she drove away. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't help you without a receipt. But I already ordered my food yesterday, and I paid. I want it now. Did I mention I'd been here for about 8 hours straight at this point? The nice professional facade was starting to crack. Ma'am, if what you're saying is true, you would have gotten your food yesterday. Well, I didn't. Either give me my food or refund. I can't do that, ma'am. If you don't give me my food right now, I'll call your corporate office and have you fired. Oh no, how scary. I'm the only person they've found who's willing to get up early enough to open their store, so these threats don't even bother me. They do make me lose all respect for the customer though. I take a breath and put on my best grin. I look her in the eyes and say, please do. I'd love a reason to show them our security footage from yesterday. We had an accident happen and the guy wouldn't let me call the cops, but if corporate saw, they'd have no choice. I just feel so terrible that happened. Her face whitened. I continued to grin. She started to sputter and suddenly I became concerned, maintaining eye contact the whole time. Now that I mention it, the other vehicle was a blue buggy just like yours. Oh, I hope the cops don't get confused and think it was you. That would be terrible. I kept the look on my face and we stared at each other in silence until she drove away. My girlfriend just gave birth to our first baby. I know I'm not the father, and I revealed it as soon as she gave birth. I found out when she was about 6 months along. The other guy, Brian, approached me at my work. "Are you Sarah's boyfriend?" I said yeah and asked what he wanted. He said he was sorry that he had been hooking up with her, and he swore he never knew that she was with someone. I still don't believe that. He then pulled out his phone to show me the text between them. They had been linking up for at least a year. Then she found out she was pregnant, and they came to an agreement to just pretend that the baby was mine. In return, she wouldn't lose her perfect life, and he wouldn't be responsible for a baby. I knew it was weird. We had been having problems trying to have a baby, and all of a sudden she got pregnant so easily. But he explained that he had been thinking about it, and he recently became a Christian. He said that he couldn't live his life knowing that I was living a lie while his child didn't even know their real father. So yeah, I told him I'd keep in touch and to not say that he said anything just yet. I've had a lot of time to think, but ultimately I decided to wait until she gave birth, to hurt her in the most vulnerable moment. I'll spare the details, but she went into labor, the baby was born, and was taken to NICU to be monitored for a bit. What should have been a beautiful moment of me holding my baby was the most heartbreaking time of my life. Just knowing he was not mine really hurt me. Once she was sewn up and comfortable, I started packing up my stuff to leave. She asked where I was going, and I just told her. I know I'm not the baby's father. You can act all shocked, but I know. Just ask Brian to come. I'm positive he'll sign the birth certificate. Then I left. She's been calling my phone over and over, even sending texts as I type this, and has even gotten her sister to call me a few times. It was hard pretending these last few months, but I think I'm satisfied. I feel really heartbroken though. I was planning to propose to her on the day our baby was born. I was gonna make her the happiest woman ever. Oh well, I'm just going to cope now. Update. My head hurts, but I'm home and safe. I'll clear up a few things. Brian is going to be in the baby's life if it's his. I don't care what anyone says. I'm sure the kid isn't mine. I'll go get tested, but me and Brian have been in contact since last night, and there isn't a doubt in my mind. For those of you calling me a psychopath or whatever, I don't really care. You'll all forget about this post in a day anyway, while I'll have to live with this crap for the rest of my life. What I did wasn't amazing, but I don't care. All I ever did was treat her amazing, and now this is how she pays me back. If you think this is fake, go read something else. Doesn't matter to me. Update. I just wanted to start by saying I would have updated sooner, but it takes a bit to get test results back. I've also been working on myself in the time being. Thanks for all the support. I'll cut to the chase. I'm not the father, but I already knew that deep down. Brian and the baby are a match, so that pretty much answers that question. He's very excited to be a dad, even despite the circumstances. We've kept in touch this whole time, and he's actually a really great guy. Goes to church now, volunteers at shelters, etc. I'm not sure if we'll continue to stay in touch after this, but I wouldn't mind getting a drink with him every once in a while. I hope the kid does great in life. He should with Brian as his dad. As for Sarah, around the time I posted, she had asked Brian to be with her officially since there was nothing to hide. As far as I know, he's not taken her up on that offer and just wants to co-parent for the sake of being in his kid's life. I think that's very smart of him, honestly. Me and her have talked as well. We talked about where it all went wrong. She felt as though I wasn't there for her fully and just felt unfulfilled, which I understand. I wasn't always the best guy, but I treated her the best I could. I guess it just wasn't meant to be. She started crying, and I did give her a hug, but I made sure she knew it wasn't because I cared about her. She's offered to stay friends and for me to visit her if I want, but I declined. I'm not really interested in keeping up with her and her kid, but I did give her the stuffed animal I was planning to give our kid someday as a gift. She's been staying with her mom and has fully moved out all of her stuff. She asked me to keep her number, but I blocked her the same day she finished moving out. So it's just me now. I'm not gonna lie, my heart has been super heavy, but I think I'll be okay. There's a cute girl at my work and we've been talking. She's a single mom and has been awesome so far. I explained that I wanted to go slow because of my recent breakup and she understands. We have hooked up once or twice, nothing serious yet. I just want to be by myself for now, but I'll likely give her a shot when I'm ready. That's it for now. I'm depressed, but I'm working out now at least. I never want to talk to Sarah and will hopefully never see her again. It sucks because she was such a big part of my life, but that's gone now. Thanks for the support. I'll answer any questions you may have. Just wanted to mention that I still don't feel bad about what I did. I can tell she's still hurting, but I definitely think she deserves it. Update. Been roughly 8 months now. No, I don't talk to Sarah. Forget her. Haven't seen her. Last I heard, she moved 3 hours away with her mom to be closer to some family. I kept seeing her around town a lot, so I'm beyond grateful she's gone now. She would attempt to have conversations with me sometimes in the first month after she gave birth, but that soon stopped. As for Brian, we text occasionally, and we did go out for that beer. He overall seems happy to be a father, but we don't talk about Sarah. I don't keep up much with him anyways. We're both hardworking men with jobs, kids, and lives to live, so it's kinda hard to keep up. I don't think they're together at all, but who knows? Speaking of kids, the woman who was a single mom that I started seeing, we're still together. Her kid is awesome, and I love being her stepdad, to be honest. So, a big forget you to those who told me to stop talking to her or that it wasn't gonna work out. It may seem like we moved fast, but at this point, I don't care. I've never loved anyone more. We communicate properly, hardly fight, just so much fun. I initially was gonna cut all contact with her after falling off into a bad drinking habit, but she really kept me grounded. I didn't meet my stepdaughter for a while, but when I did, I knew I couldn't leave. Being a part of this little family has healed me in ways I literally can't fathom. And before anyone says I just use them to deal with the issue of not having my own kid, that couldn't be further from the truth. I'm in therapy. I got my crap together, and most days I don't even think about my ex. I even forgot about this darn account. Words cannot describe how much my life has picked up now. Thank you, Reddit strangers, for being there in my darkest time in my life. Honestly, it helped. Hoping to propose to my girlfriend sometime in the future. Son has a peanut allergy. School continues to give him or allow him to get peanuts. This has been an ongoing issue since the second day of school, where he was given peanut butter crackers. We sort of brushed it off as a new school year, new students, teachers a bit frazzled dealing with first graders, no real big deal. His allergy isn't really severe, but still not fun to deal with and could potentially become life-threatening. We had already informed the school of his allergy before the school year even started, and even talked directly to the teacher about it, because the default snack during the day, if no other parents brought in a snack, is peanut butter crackers. We even offered to purchase a special alternative for him, but they said it was unnecessary as they have other alternatives. So we figured the issue was over when a few weeks later it happened again. This time they claimed he grabbed another student's snack and ran off to eat it before they could stop him. Now, my little one can be a bit of a hardhead, and I can potentially see this happening. So again, we talked to him about peanuts and how dangerous they are to him. He continued to adamantly deny doing that and said Mrs. Teacher gave them to him. We then decide a meeting with the principal is in order, not to blame the teacher or accuse her of lying, but to hopefully get this under control. Again, a few weeks of no more issues, then it happened again. Once again, the story is, he grabbed it and ran off and ate the whole package before we caught him. Okay, so a 6-year-old managed to grab an unopened package of crackers, elude a teacher, and an aide to eat the whole package before he's caught? He's crying and swearing to us he was given them, and after so many incidents, we have to start believing him. Another meeting with the principal and teacher gets us a, "Don't worry, this won't happen again." We have another long sit down with our son to explain that even if it's given to you, ask to make sure it doesn't have peanuts or other nuts in it. Then, the very next school day, the meeting was on Friday, he's given another snack of peanut butter crackers, but this time he asks if there's nuts in it, and then he's given the alternative. We figured it kinda sucks that the kid has to be the adult right here, but at the end of the day, he's learning to ask about nuts. We send an email to the principal detailing the issue and say that the next step is the school board if he's given peanuts again. We get a response back. "If he's asking now, what's the problem? He should have known to ask to begin with. We are teachers, not parents." We have no issues for a while until this week. Some parent brought in peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for snack time and he was given one. He forgot to ask about nuts, but thought it was only in the crackers. We find out the parent was aware of the nut allergy in the class. It's on the parent snack sheet and brought in just a jelly one that was made separate from the peanut butter ones. He was not given this one. We spent a day at the hospital. We've had endless talks with him about nuts and do our best to teach him, but some of the blame has to be on the teachers here, right? Do schools not have an obligation to deal with allergies? The school lunch seems to have zero issues with this and has never given him a nut when there are several things on the menu rotation that contain them. He gets a special tray that was nowhere near any nuts. This is in Indiana. Any help is appreciated. Update. The past 3 months have been long and expensive, but it's finally resolved. Now, I can't go into a lot of the details after, but I can go over some of the details that happened during. We contacted a few attorneys and finally found one we were comfortable with, and then the fun started. We first sat down with the principals and teacher with our attorney, and he didn't say anything except he needs to talk to someone else and not us. Our attorney then began collecting documents and statements, affidavits from our pediatrician, another doctor, and even got another opinion. Then he began having us get documents from the school, some of which they said we couldn't have, but our lawyer assured us we could have them. So he sent the school district some nice letters, and a few phone calls later, we had everything. Talking to our insurance in the hospital was the easiest part of this entire thing, which I thought would be more complicated, and our insurance even offered their attorney services to our attorney, which turned out to be quite helpful with some of the other issues that came up along the way. He spent about a month going over everything, talking to doctors, getting more statements, and reaching out to other parents, etc. During this time, our kid was moved from his normal classroom and placed in a special needs classroom, something we did not agree to or with. Our kid has no developmental problems, and an allergy is hardly a special need. So our lawyer then starts having us request more documents. Same act with the school, and he had to send off letters and phone calls to get the new stuff related to him being put into a special needs classroom. The lawyer began sending letters about how the school district is punishing our kid with the move to a more restrictive classroom and a different curriculum, and magically the next day, he's back in a normal classroom. Finally, after 3 months of mostly playing the game with the school district, getting them to give us the paperwork and requests they are legally required to, we all finally sit down with the school district's attorney and our attorney. Now, I can't go into a lot of the details, but I can tell you that they settled without us moving on to the next step of having our meetings in the courtroom. Lawyers are expensive, and so are hospital bills. I just hope all of this doesn't make our kid a target for the rest of the year. We're going to be moving and changing jobs over the summer, hopefully. Thanks for all your help and advice, guys and girls. The plans everyone brought up for us to look over were incredibly important because we already had them on file with the school. Am I the jerk for being mad that my stepdaughter will inherit our house? My husband, who's 65, and I, 47, have been married for 10 years. After my husband's retirement party, the discussion of wills and inheritance came up, and my husband informed me that he's leaving our marital home to his daughter, who's 30, in his will, which left me feeling completely blindsided and shocked. I'm aware that due to our significant age difference, I most likely will outlive my husband by many years and will probably have to spend the last decades of my life alone. So I was really upset, but also angry to learn I will most likely be kicked out of our house after my husband passes and I'm left homeless. My husband explained to me that I knew the house belonged to his late wife, who inherited it from her parents, and that I couldn't possibly expect him to not leave his house to their daughter. I replied that the house now belongs to him, and as his wife, I have a right to my marital home, and it's not fair that I will be kicked out of our home after I spend so much time and effort redecorating it and making it my own, and become homeless after his passing because I'm a housewife and I have nowhere else to go. He has an obligation to ensure my financial safety after his death. He said that it will be incredibly unfair to his daughter and his late wife if I inherit the house, and his wife would have never wanted that. His wife passed unexpectedly at a relatively young age before she got around to making a will, so my husband automatically got the house as per inheritance laws. He also explained that I'm the sole beneficiary of his life insurance, and any other savings left behind will be equally divided between me and his daughter. However, I don't think this money would be enough for me to survive the rest of my life, especially as my husband plans on having expensive cruises and holidays for the rest of his retirement. This is where, unfortunately, our argument escalated and we started yelling at each other. I told him he's doing me over after everything I've done for him, after I gave up my job and my career for him to look after our home, and that I deserve to be compensated. He retorted that he never asked me to become a housewife and it was completely my own choice, that I knew the risks and benefits and made an informed choice, and he will be leaving a reasonable inheritance, and if I'm not happy with it, I should go back to work. I told him I never knew that I wouldn't get the house and that it's too late for me to return after being out of work for over 10 years, that he's a jerk for leaving me stranded like this, and this is not what I agreed to, and he's mistreating me by not recognizing my contribution to our family. He laughed at me, saying I never had any kind of financial contribution, as we hired cleaners and housekeepers to do most of the chores, and if anything, I was a drain by all the money I spend. Honestly, at this point, I was so enraged and in tears, and I screamed at him for being completely cruel, and I locked myself in the guest room. So, am I the jerk for wanting the house if my husband passes before me? Edit. Okay, I get it. I'm the jerk. I will apologize to my husband and try to look for a job. This time, something not so stressful and something I'll enjoy and build my own savings. I don't want to divorce my husband and take half. I honestly didn't marry him for money. I didn't even know he was wealthy until 6 months into our relationship. Honestly, when I met him, I was done with dating and so jaded with men after being cheated on quite a bit until he came along and honestly kind of swept me off my feet. He was so thoughtful, kind, and loyal, and our socio-political opinions just matched. We saw the world in a similar manner, and I never thought I would be with someone much older, but he was everything I've ever wanted. I used to work in customer service jobs, and in my last job, I was a 999 call handler. And yeah, it was really bad for my mental health, and I made minimum wage. My husband encouraged me to do something I enjoy instead, as he saw that it stressed me out. Although I did intend to find a more relaxing job, honestly, yeah, I enjoyed being at home and pursuing hobbies and doing things at my own pace. I admit it was a really comfortable life, and I let him financially take care of me and become financially dependent on him. It was way easier than the grading and the grinding. I had grown really attached to the house, which I wouldn't have done if I had known that it wouldn't be mine or that I would be kicked out of it at some point. I honestly didn't know it belonged to his late wife's parents, and I was just so shocked and blindsided. I just thought that his wife's name was on the deed, as she was the main earner at that time. But yeah, I realize it's completely my fault for assuming that and that I was acting entitled. I will apologize to my husband and my stepdaughter. You're the jerk. It's not your house. He explained it to you. It was his first wife's house, and his reasoning for giving it to his daughter is sound. It was her grandparents' house, for goodness sake. It should stay in the family. Would you leave it to her when you passed? Or would she lose out on the property her mom inherited? And 47 is not too old to go back to work. I know people who changed careers at that age, so stop with your excuses. Am I the jerk for not letting my niece help in my bakery anymore? I, 35 female, own a small bakery. I'm very happy with it and proud of my work. I have 2 employees who work part-time, and for the most part it's just me. My sister-in-law approached me at the beginning of the summer and asked if I would let my niece, who's 11, help out in the bakery over the school break. She's been getting really into baking and loves watching content creators baking and apparently really wanted to shadow and help out in a bakery. I was hesitant, but I said yes, and I hated it. Every single minute that my niece spent in my bakery this summer was the only time I've ever had any regrets opening my business. Whatever the opposite of helpful was, that's what my niece was. My employees didn't enjoy her being there, and I didn't enjoy her being there at all. We were 3 very grumpy people all summer. I had hopes that she would get better, but she didn't. She started back at school last week, and I've never felt so relieved. I thought many times about telling my sister-in-law that she couldn't come back during the summer, but since I had made the promise, I kept with it. My sister-in-law stopped by the house the other day to drop something off for my husband. She told me my niece had absolutely loved her experience this summer and wanted to know if she could come back a couple Saturdays a month. I told her that unfortunately that wasn't going to work and that going forward I didn't think it was a good idea for my niece to help out. I told her it just wasn't productive for us. My sister-in-law was very unhappy. She told me that my niece had loved her summer at the bakery and was so looking forward to continuing. I told her that I was sorry, but I had a business to run and I couldn't continue having her help out. This dissolved into a shouting match that my husband eventually broke up. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law have been sending me nasty messages about breaking a girl's heart. My husband said my niece called him and was very upset, but he stands by me and understands that I can't let this bring down my workplace. So, am I being the jerk? Not the jerk. This isn't a hobby and it's not a daycare. It's your business, your livelihood. I don't know what niece did to be so bothersome, but in the end it's your choice, and you need to make a choice that works for your business. I was fired early in my career by a team of 2 senior people I reported to. Revenge came in time. When I was in my early 20s trying to make it in the world and just starting out, I reported to a senior sales team as a junior salesperson. Really, it was a support role, and I knew my place. I watched, I stayed quiet, I learned and helped them. I reported to a lady who was mid-level and the senior guy who was head of sales. I was green, and while I was seeking mentorship and periodically asking for advice to improve how I was able to support them, they mistook it for incompetence. It was simple things like learning what format each of them preferred their daily reports in and tasks they had to do. I also had an issue because the senior guy basically stole my first bonus at the 3-month mark. It was a tiny amount to him, but a lot for young me. I didn't officially complain, but asked him about how he was able to keep my bonus when it was obvious it tracked back to my efforts on the data. He didn't like that and didn't pay me. I was doing a good job. I'm fully aware of my skills, but with the explanation, "It's just not working out," they fired me a few weeks later. I spent a couple months getting a new job, which turned out to be an amazing smaller firm where I was appreciated, mentored correctly, and thrived. The new firm was very successful. About 2 years later, after I'd become a vital but still junior part of the smaller company, my former firm closed up in the region and put everyone out of work. So I saw through the glass while walking by the boardroom one day that the senior guy who stole my bonus was being interviewed for a job at my current firm. My current supervisors didn't see me walk by, but my old boss and I made eye contact. Now, in a small sales team at a small firm, it's important to have a nice working relationship and trust. It's also a lot of selfish salespeople who are there to make money and don't like being ripped off. So later that afternoon, I quietly mentioned to the boss, "I saw X in the office today when I walked by. I used to work for him, and that jerk stole my bonus one time." It was all I needed to say, because the last thing my current boss needed was a person who'd do that on our team. Then times got tough, and I know that man spent 2 years looking for work. 6 or 7 years later, I was at a new company in a more senior role, and the one lady who I originally reported to called me and was selling at a new firm, and she was calling to ask if I'd be interested in purchasing from her. I didn't know she had started working there. The firm she was with was selling something that was very basic and interchangeable to competing firms. She had gone from selling important things to selling a nothing product after the original firm closed. She acted all happy and nice to me and recalled the great job I did when we worked together. I also knew she didn't want to be talking to me, but her call log said that she had to call. I told her thanks and sent me along an official quote and proposal, several hours of work for her. In the industry we were in, she was paid not only on new sales, but a net sales measure, meaning she had to retain clients as well as bring in new ones. I had a lot of commitment at the firm she was now at. While she spent her afternoon drafting a proposal, I spent a couple hours pulling all my business from that company and subbing it for a competitor up the street. She emailed me a full proposal and mentioned she was excited to be working with me again and supporting my business. She had no idea yet I just pulled everything, and she would never receive a bonus this year because of the size of the amount that I pulled. The next day, she emailed me quite upset and had CC'd her boss, who I've known for years and had a good working relationship with. I replied to all and thanked her and said I decided to go with a competitor because it just won't work out, as I find your approach to business dealings to be insincere. Her boss emailed me back directly and asked what happened, and I replied that I just don't think she's a sincere person. My business to their firm was worth more than her job, and she didn't last more than a month there after that. I thought this was petty through the first part, but wow, you torpedoed that woman's career. I guess the lesson learned is to treat people nicely regardless of age or experience, because they could eventually be in a position to destroy you just for fun. You sure it's mine? Fine, I'll keep it. This happened in 2014. I had just lost my job and was in the process of looking for a new one, but didn't have much money saved to pay bills in the meantime. So I asked my father if I could borrow $1,200 just to get me through the next month, and I would pay him back as soon as I started working again. He sent the money, I paid my bills, and I got a new job shortly after. As soon as I had the money to pay him back, I used my bank's online bill pay option to send him a check. I sent him a text and told him it was on the way and just assumed that would be the end of it. Well, a week went by and he hadn't gotten it. I thought maybe it took a few days for the bank to actually process the bill pay option because I hadn't used it before, so I asked him to just wait a few more days and see if it came through. Several days later, it still hadn't gotten there, so I called the bank and asked them, and they told me I could stop payment on it for free, so I did. Then I just wrote a personal check and mailed it. I just assumed something went wrong with the online bill pay. About 2 months later, I got a check in the mail from a medical facility in the state my father lives in for $1,200. I called and asked them about it, and they told me on a recorded line that it was an overpayment on an account my father had with them, and it was a legitimate check and was mine to keep. At that point, I didn't associate it with the bill pay thing. I did call my father to ask about his accounts with this place because there was no reason they should have my address to be sending me an overpayment if he had already made one. He had no idea what was going on because he hadn't used that facility in a few years. I looked up the place on Google, and finally it dawned on me what had happened. My father's address was on Saddlewood Drive at that point in time, but when I typed it into bill pay, my phone autocorrected it to Sandalwood, and it just so happened to be the same numerical address. And because my father's name was listed as the payee, they erroneously attempted to apply it to his account. So that's where my check had gone. I tried to call them again and explain what happened, and the lady on the phone was extremely rude to me. She told me, "I've already talked to you about this. I don't know why you're calling again. We sent you what we owed you. This account is settled and we will not be talking about it again. Again, this is a recorded line. I asked if she was sure they owed me this money. She practically shouted, "Yes!" And I just smiled and hung up the phone. I deposited the check into my account that day. They didn't try to call me back until about 6 weeks later. I'd been wondering how long it would take. The person who called me was a different lady, and she called to tell me that a mistake had been made and that I owed them $1,200. I told her she was misinformed and she should go back and listen to the recorded calls that I had made to their office and gave her the dates. I had been reassured multiple times that the money was mine and that I was in the clear to cash that check, and then I hung up. I haven't heard a single thing about it since then. Am I the jerk for not paying for our son's college tuition after he blew his money when he was 18, despite being able to afford it? So at 18, we gave our son his college fund, told him he can do as he pleases with it. He chose to spend it traveling and finding himself over the last 2 years. He's now 20 and wishes to go to school and asked us to pay for his tuition. When I asked what happened to the money, he told us the above. I said no and told him if he wants to go to school, he better get a job. My wife wants to pay it for his future. I said no, we did right, and he chose otherwise. Am I the jerk? Edit. We did inform him that the money was his to use, be it for college or whatever. It was his money after all. We set it aside for him. We did explain the intent, but he's an adult and he was free to use it as he pleases. Just understand the consequences. Edit. 18 is an adult in my eyes and old enough to understand actions have consequences. We informed him what the intent was for and that we would not police him over it. It was his money and he was free to use it as he pleased. Sorry if I didn't explain this properly beforehand. Edit. My son knows what I do for a living. That said, what I did was exactly what my dad did. I also did not use it to go to school. I used it as a down payment on 2 houses and rented them out and asked him for help. My son was free to do the same. He may not have the knowledge or impulse control, but he is old enough to know that it's okay to ask for help if he's unsure how to use said money or had no idea what to do with his life. I'm not a monster and he knows this. He could have just asked, "Hey, I want to travel. How can I best go about that?" Had he asked, I would have said, "Let's do X, Y, and Z with your money." Then I would have given him more money to travel. We did the same with his car. He wanted a car and we told him to save. When he saved up an amount needed to buy a car, I told him to keep it and we bought him a car. He knows I do not think solely to be a cruel monster. He had a bunch of options and he chose the worst one. But I was not going to forcefully interject my views on him if he did not want to come to me and ask for help. The fact he did not meant to me that he did not want my guidance. Not the jerk. But seriously, did you expect an 18-year-old to make good choices with that kind of money? Yes. 18 is old enough to make responsible choices. Otherwise, we wouldn't let them drive or work. Not the jerk. He spent the college fund. It's not a magic well of money that replenishes itself. That being said, did no one bring this up with him over the 2 years he spent the money? Did he not mention it? Seems like a communication gap. Today I messed up by sending my wife to check if a Powerball ticket was a winner. So this happened a few days ago. I have a long-standing habit of buying a lottery ticket for the Powerball or Megaball, etc. whenever it gets over 300 million. It's overall a very small amount per year and it's just a small investment in fun times from my point of view. Recently, the prize was slowly creeping up due to no winners multiple weeks in a row. The prize gets rolled over if there's no winner. It was over $1 billion last week and I bought a ticket like usual. But I got too busy to take it in to check the numbers. Here's where I messed up. I decided to give the ticket to my wife to check. Now she's a sweet lady who's not used to this kind of stuff, so she wasn't familiar with the process. I sent her to a local supermarket with a machine, explained how to scan the card, and sent her on her merry way. A little while later, I get a strange text basically saying, "You better be sitting down." And then a text saying something to the effect of, "I'm never coming back to this store again." Later, I got the full story. She scanned the ticket correctly, and the machine announced that she was a winner. A full-screen graphic in giant words, the works. She freaked out at the prospect of becoming billionaires. She does not know how much is shaved off for taxes, but that's a different story. Attracting attention in the store. After hyperventilating for a minute or two, she saw that the machine stated to proceed to a checkout counter. She walks over and found out that she won $2. She was not aware that if you get one number or sum in the right place, you can win your money back. Anyways, after landing back on Earth abruptly, she left the store mortified at her reaction to winning $2, and now we need to find someplace else to shop. Most people will never know what it feels like to be a billionaire, but she did. My wife has scammed multiple people on Facebook and she lied to me about it. So about a week ago, I got this Facebook message from some lady saying that my wife scammed her out of some money shipping baby clothes. I went to my wife about it before talking to the lady, and my wife said, "I've never seen this lady in my whole life. She's just trying to get you to send her $30. She then went on to block the lady, and that was that. Well, this morning I got a message request from a different lady saying how my wife scammed her also out of $120, and she sent me screenshots of her and my wife's conversation and transactions. I unblocked the other lady, and she also sent me conversations and transactions. And apparently there are others as well. So I now have 3 ladies in my DMs with proof that my wife scammed them out of money, lied to them about having a miscarriage, and said that she was on bed rest and couldn't. She's at work as a bartender right now. She's not on bed rest. The thing that irks me the most is how quick she was to lie to me and block the lady. It just didn't feel right, but I thought, oh well, she wouldn't lie to me about something like this. Now I'm just sitting here wondering how much more she's lied to me about, and I don't feel like I can even trust her anymore. My wife doesn't know that I have all of this information. Any idea what I should do next? Her reaction is a bit sus. She just said, "I've never seen her before. She's trying to get money from you?" I'd be like, what? Who is this? Why do they think that? Give me their details so I can clear this up. I'd put a hold on my credit and check all of my accounts, to be honest. If it turns out she's really doing this, I'd find a divorce attorney. If these people are genuine victims and they found you, they can also find friends, family, and employers. OP. Her reaction was what drove me to believe these people. Took my phone and blocked this lady and denied. But from the messages this lady had with my wife, I fully believe that my wife has been scamming people. And on top, she lied to them. Said that I had shipped their packages, lied and said she had a miscarriage and had to be bedridden, and basically just tried to play the victim the entire time when she had no intentions of giving this lady her stuff. She even sold her some clothing that she had already given to somebody else. And how quick she was to block the lady is what I found suspicious, but I didn't do anything because I believed her. Apparently, the original lady made a post on some mom's group Facebook page, and that's how they all found me. Plus, like a week ago, my wife just randomly deleted her Facebook account, and it all lines up perfectly for when the original lady threatened to make a public post about my wife. They paid her on a PayPal that isn't her actual PayPal. She's at work right now, but I'm going to try to do more digging into this later. But basically, that whole Facebook group has my wife on a no-sell list because this isn't the first time this has happened apparently. The original lady who contacted me invited me and showed me the public post that she made shaming my wife for what she did. Talk to her about why she's doing it and what else she's lied about. She should be worried about the police too. OP. I don't think she'll be honest at this point. I was invited to the Facebook group my wife sold all of this stuff in, and they have a whole 3 posts talking about how she's on a ban list and she's cheated other people out of their money too. Update. I confronted my wife with all of the evidence that she's absolutely guilty of doing this, including the money trail, and I had my phone recording everything and a hidden security camera going to watch it all, and she still denied it. And then told me that I was a joke of a husband for not believing her in this whole ordeal. And she continued to go off on me for 45 minutes and just say awful things. Anytime I would bring up a point, she would just dismiss it and continue to gaslight me. So I'm taking my 2-year-old with me and we're going to my buddy's house for the rest of the week. My husband's female best friend is pregnant and she says that it's his. My husband came home around 6 a.m. and threw his keys on the side and went upstairs without saying anything to me. I thought this was a little rude and I walked up after him, telling him that we need to talk, but he said he was tired and needed to sleep, which just made me angry because I was serious. I told him halfway up the stairs that I knew about him and Laura, to which he then looked at me confused. I explained my side and the text and what it seemed like, and he ended up laughing in my face. This filled me up with so much petty rage because I've had enough of being walked on, so I pushed past him into our room and I got a suitcase from under the bed and started to pack his stuff for him. He started shouting and saying really horrible things, but I didn't hear most of it because I was crying uncontrollably and busy ramming every item of clothing he owned. Most of it didn't fit, but he could come back and collect the rest later. One insult that stood out to me was, "Crazy jerk!" And this is where I snapped, and I said some horrible things too. I know I called him a bad husband, but in more of a rude tone. He ended up leaving with his suitcase I packed and a plastic bag after I said I would get my dad involved if he didn't leave. Afterwards, I took a recommended comment and I told my family everything. My brother didn't care, but my father was so angry there might have been steam coming from the phone after the call. I haven't heard from my soon-to-be ex-husband, but his response to my question was complete disrespect, and I wasn't able to hold it in for much longer. I'm sure what I did was a complete overreaction until I texted Laura's mother since I said I would do that. She didn't reply until 11 a.m., but basically what happened is that she only met my husband 2 years ago, which I'm guessing was during his constant overtime. This made me so angry that I texted Laura something petty, which I don't regret. I hadn't replied to her yet, so I told her that she can have him, and I can't wait till the same thing happens to her and she gets cheated on. She hasn't replied yet or seen it. I've screenshotted everything she said and the picture, and I'll be contacting a lawyer later on. Nothing else has really happened, and if it does, I'll update. Thanks, everyone. Update. Husband messaged and I ignored it, and Laura left me on read. Husband messaged that he's sorry and wants to come home and needs to talk about Laura's message. Not sure what he's going to say about it, but I'm going to message him back to meet me somewhere else because I don't want him in my house right now. Not sure what he's going to say, but I'm ready for the lies and gaslighting. Edit. I'm really disappointed in Reddit. I thought this could be a post event and have men and women help and give advice and listen to me so I can finally feel like I'm being heard. And I'm getting a lot of crappy comments and people spamming me saying I'm scummy for lying and that they'll find me. If you're one of those people, please leave me alone. Yes, I have left out some information and I'm not updating immediately, but I've been so tired these past 2 days and I really don't have the ability nor resistance to keep typing up massive updates. I took some time off of work to figure stuff out, but I'm not looking forward to the amount piled up from my missed days. Love you all, and I wish you all the best, especially for the people that went through what I'm going through right now. Am I the jerk for dismissing my rude daughter's feelings? Am I out of line? I'm female 45, and my daughter is 18. Recently, I just lost my aunt. My daughter has always been a closed-off and reserved person. However, she's a little immature when she doesn't get what she wants, and is very snide and in your face sometimes during these occasions. When my aunt passed, my sister came over and has been here ever since, for about 4 weeks now, when we arranged the funeral and reception. My daughter did not cry or look upset at all, even though she'd sometimes go to look after her great aunt on the days her great uncle needed to go out, since she was bedbound and completely paralyzed and unable to speak. You'd expect some sort of reaction, right? But she had none. She'd avoid her great aunt a lot, and she never even talked to me about her. For this reason, I assumed she was just detached, as a lot of kids usually are, and left her alone. However, since her aunt came to stay with us and brought her 3 kids, she's been very bratty and complains when she has to clean up after them because they're quite spoiled. She's like this every time they come to stay because my sister is quite an unhygienic person and she and her kids have had lice for years. She didn't say anything to them since my aunt is grieving, so she hides in her room for the whole day because she feels stuffy and repulsed, always asking me when will they leave. I understand why she feels this way. I don't like how the kids and my sister crowd my home and they don't clean up after themselves. But they're family and we're grieving, even if she's not. She even hated the reception, not serving the guests, family and family friends, and looked annoyed when I told her so. And she said she just wanted to sit there. It was very embarrassing for me. All she needed to do was hand out water. I told her not to be so mean, as they're family and her aunt is grieving. But she, being immature, narrowed her eyes at me and told me she feels trapped in this house, wanting space, before she went back to her room. Even when I ask her to come downstairs and spend time with me. She's usually very sweet, smart and mature, even emotionally, and very perceptive, but for the past few weeks, she's been more reclusive and bratty than usual, even more so than other times when her aunt has been around. Am I right in being dismissive of her attitude and feelings? It seems to me, as of recently, there's been a bad change in her. Even if she doesn't care about her great aunt passing, someone who has taken care of her before developing this illness and who she's known since she was young, she should at least think of her aunt's needs. Honestly, I'm quite annoyed. My mother told me I should just leave her alone to herself, but she needs to be kinder. Edit. I admit that tradition has influenced a lot of my decisions and my own personality, and that has in turn affected my daughter as much as I ignored it. I'll be having a long discussion with my sister about her problems, trying to sort out her hygiene as well, and making her go back home, and giving my daughter a much-needed apology. I don't want to lose her, as many of you had pointed out, that the longer I continue on this route, the higher the likelihood she'll cut me off. I'll talk to her, and I'll try to help her out however she needs me to. Unfortunately, I'm not in America, but I have called the social services on my sister before, and they closed the case after a very short investigation. I will not be calling them again due to their terrible service, but I will force my sister to get her act together by completely barring her from my house until she takes my advice. Only until she has begun to take care of her own kids will I allow her near my own. I will also be trying my best to earn my daughter's forgiveness. You're the jerk. It isn't your daughter's job to be an unpaid maid to a family so unhygienic they carry lice. That's absolutely repulsive and places your entire household at risk. And obviously, it isn't just their grief if this is how they live. I wouldn't want to be around that level of illness or neglect either. Why don't you try cleaning up after them and get lice and see how you like it? And also, who likes a funeral reception? What kind of demented Better Homes and Gardens party planet are you living on? Stop alienating your daughter for no reason because family is no excuse for what you describe. You're the jerk. I ignored my husband so much that he went away without telling me. I, Carla, 30, am 6 months pregnant with mine and my husband's, Harry, 31, first baby. During this pregnancy, I've been very exhausted every day and would usually come home from work and go to bed an hour later. Then I'd wake up at midnight and reheat whatever Harry had made us for dinner. For context, I've been part of a huge work project that's been going on for months, and I've been extremely overworked. On top of this, my husband doesn't have a job at this moment and isn't looking for one unless I remind him to. I've been working overtime to get as much money as I can before maternity leave. Our anniversary was on the 6th of August, and I'd asked him if we could have a romantic dinner at home and then snuggle up to watch TV under a warm blanket. I thought it was a wonderful idea since I was too tired to go out, and because I knew that Harry was doing most, if not all, of the household chores. However, he seemed a little annoyed when he agreed, but I thought nothing of it. The next morning, Harry seemed quite cold towards me and barely looked me in the eyes. Once I got home from work, he wasn't there. But that was normal since he could have been out with friends or at an interview, and so I went to sleep. I woke up at 11 that night to see that I was still alone in the house, so I checked my phone. I had about 8 missed calls from Harry and a long text. I'm summarizing, but the text read, "I understand how tired you are because of this pregnancy and you having to work extra hours most days, but I'm over being ignored every day and having a 5-minute conversation with you every so often. You expect me to do all the housework and plan our boring anniversary alone. I'm really annoyed, so I'm staying at a friend's tonight. Text me when you see this." Of course, I called and texted him about being sorry and wanting to talk, but I never got an answer. In the morning, I called my boss about having a day off and spent most of it waiting for Harry and planning my apology. However, when he came home, he silently handed me a rose and a card saying that he loves me but needs a few days away from me to figure out what he's going to say and do. Then, those days became a week. This part happened on the 13th, 8 days later. I messaged him every day and he would constantly say he needed one more day or just another night at his friend's to figure all of this out. But on the 13th, I decided to go to his friend's house who he was staying with to confront him. So I drove over, nearly 30 minutes away, and banged on the door so hard that I could hear it echo from the inside. By this point, I'd realized that I should have put in more effort to our relationship, but he also should have talked to me about this instead of just running away. Harry's friend came to the door and was confused, but pleased to see me. He seemed a little on edge as I talked to him, and he had to break the silence every so often with comments about my pregnancy and how he couldn't wait to meet the baby. Finally, we stopped talking, and I practically demanded to see Harry, saying that I wanted to apologize, but also explain how childish he was being by hiding from me. The thing that I found absolutely hilarious, but actually not at all, was that his friend said that Harry wasn't there and had left for Ireland on the 9th. Ireland! To say I was absolutely furious and extremely confused would be such an understatement. His friend invited me in, and we sat down to talk. Turns out that Harry had told his friend of our problems and had come up with the solution of going on a holiday as a couple to sort everything out and learn to love each other again, in Harry's words. So of course, his friend thought this was a lovely idea and helped him book the flight on the evening of the 5th, the first time he had stayed at his friend's house. Since it was a last-minute booking, Harry's friend had stayed up with him for quite a while before they found a flight who was taking a few more passengers due to canceled tickets. His friend then explained how he had been confused when I arrived at the door, but didn't want to say anything about the holiday in case it had ended early due to us arguing. Harry's return ticket is booked for the 20th of August. I'm just so angry and quite heartbroken, to be honest. I messaged him the moment his friend had finished talking, and Harry only responded an hour ago with nothing more than a "had to figure things out, sorry." So now I'm home alone again and trying to figure out what I'm going to do or say when he gets home. Anyway, thanks for reading about how my life is going. Side note, I'm from the UK, so Ireland isn't as far as people think since I'm not American, but it still is far. Other side note, a question that keeps repeating is, where did he get the money from without you noticing? So I'll go ahead and explain that. He has a bank account with his money from when he worked as a teenager and a little into his 20s before we met, and a few years ago we agreed not to touch that money and add to it every so often. It was a backup savings account, so I'm assuming that he took the money from there since it wasn't from the joint account. Edit, 6 hours later. I knew this post would get attention, but I assumed it would only be a little. I've never used Reddit before, but I've seen it on TikTok a few times, so I thought posts only become popular on there. I was upset when I posted this and didn't think about how I'd handle all of the judgments and conspiracies once I'd calmed down. I appreciate the hard truths, empathy, and/or advice given to me here, but I'm not divorcing him, changing the locks, or calling a lawyer or anything like that. Update. It's the 17th now. I've had a longer time to think. I'm not deciding anything until our talk, but I definitely won't be staying in my home with him after this. I can't trust him to not run away again. I'll talk more about this on my actual update, but I've gained some self-respect, and I'm realizing that he's being the jerk. I talked to my mom, and she's happy for me to move in with her on the 21st, and I'm free to stay for as long as I need to. How many tickets did he book? Is he alone? OP. 2 tickets as far as his friend knows, and I don't know who he took with him, but I'd like to assume it's a different friend or a relative, or that it just wasn't used. Guess I'd be waiting at the airport with a sign with his name on it. Just stand there casually and tell him that you're his ride. Imagine if the affair partner doesn't know that he's married and his wife is pregnant. She's gonna be shocked when she sees you. Yeah, either he went with a girlfriend who gets to meet the pregnant wife, or he went alone because he was super sad and seeing her there waiting for him might be a good way to get started on repairing their Yeah, sure, he totally went alone, didn't he? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Harry? Please let us know. Harry should have studied harder at Hogwarts. He's really not doing this life thing right. You're upset that I'm the top performer? Then you get yourself a bare minimum employee. For background, my jobs have always been geared towards data entry, as that's what I'm best at. I've always typed over 120 words per minute, and I love finding new keyboard shortcuts to save me time and just be more efficient overall. Not a brag, trust me. Because of this skill, I've always excelled in prior roles that utilized it. That is, until my current career. I've been with this company for almost 3 months now. As with a lot of data entry jobs, this one has weekly productivity that you must meet. By week 2, I was meeting productivity once I grasped the role. This fueled me to try and get even faster. I learned the programs I was to be using and used simple keyboard shortcuts to toggle between programs, close them, used Excel formulas, etc. You get the idea. If there's a way to save time, I'll find it. We got the team productivity email yesterday, and I see that I tripled what's expected of a single employee in an entire week. My numbers skyrocketed to levels that haven't been reached before. Now, here's the really fun part. Rather than getting any sort of praise, this company has felt anti-praise since I started, or being asked how I did it, I got an email from management stating my numbers are concerning and that they're essentially opening up an investigation to see if I cheated somehow. I even received a screenshot of others' numbers in one specific area with management stating it's impossible to have that much of a lead over those who have been here for years. My numbers were in the 800s, while the second highest was 300 in a week. Today, my boss calls me and says she's been spending the day checking my work, and so far everything's been accurate. Mind you, this investigation didn't start with her. She was just asked to check my work and was reporting what she had found. But it's all accurate. She says I can continue with what I'm doing since she found no problems. Now, I learned quickly that this isn't the type of place to be praised. There's zero incentive for anyone to go above and beyond if it's just going to be questioned. Now, to clarify, I fully understand that if something seems off, a company is going to want to check and ensure I'm understanding the work and entering it properly, especially with a new employee. But to email me stating it's concerning and impossible prior to even checking my work is where I have the issue. They shouldn't even have told me that they had to look into it. They were told my numbers were accurate, and there has been radio silence since. No apology, no praise, no how did you do it, in hopes that I can show the rest of my team so we can get caught up one day. So with what little knowledge of Excel I had, I made a spreadsheet that tallies my accounts as I go, so I can pace myself, and I'm now alerted as soon as I meet the goal so that I can stop working without going over. I did add just a tiny bit more wiggle room to my spreadsheet as to not accidentally go under productivity to where they would have reason to use corrective action, but just ever so slightly above the bare minimum. If they're going to treat me like a bare minimum employee, they're going to get a bare minimum employee. Edit. I'm very much looking for new employment, and I'm open to any suggestions for remote work if you have leads on a company that will utilize and appreciate the skills I have to offer, located in the US. Am I the jerk for expecting my very rich sister to pitch in on my wedding after she said she would? I'm female, 35. My mother married my stepdad when I was 17. He had a daughter from a previous marriage, Ellie, who's 29. We were never close because when they moved in with us, Ellie was super clingy, would always follow me around and basically stalk me in my own house. Your typical know-it-all, barely left the house, so basically had zero friends that weren't online. So Ellie managed to graduate early and get into a really good college on scholarships, then got a master's there as well. She's in engineering, and her college is like apparently one of the best ones for engineering. So straight after graduating, she was earning a crazy amount. She's been rubbing this in my face ever since she got the acceptance letter. When she was home, she was always wearing the university hoodie, always talking about what she's doing at college, sending videos of robots and crap into the family group chat. Now that she's earning so much, it's things like her paying off our parents' car loans for Christmas or getting extravagant gifts for everyone. We had a few fights about it, but we always made up. Why were you fighting her about it? So now on to this year. I got engaged last year in February to my fiance, who's 32. I asked my sister if she would pitch in, and she said she would help out. Knowing she had the money, I got to plan my dream wedding. I was so excited about planning our big day. That was until I showed her the plans and she pulled the rug from beneath my feet. She asks me how I'm paying for it. My husband and I didn't go to college, so we're not high earners, and I reminded her that she said she would help. She's now saying that she won't help pay for it, and she will at the absolute most pay for my dress. I told her it's unfair of her to lie to me and only tell me after planning everything that she isn't actually going to help. She blew up at me over us not even being close in the past and blaming me for it. It takes two people to bond. But she claims everything is my fault. We argued for a bit, and now she's not even paying for my dress. All the wedding planning I've done has been for nothing now. My parents are split, with my mom saying Ellie needs to honor her word and let me have the wedding I planned, and we all pitch in what we can afford. My stepdad is angry I asked her in the first place and dug up some old arguments from when I was 17. Am I the jerk for expecting her to do what she said? You're the jerk. Someone saying they'll help with a wedding is in no way indicating that they'll pay for the whole thing. Just because she has money doesn't mean you're entitled to it, and when dealing with wedding budgets, you should always find out what people are actually willing to spend and not count on the money until it's in your hand. You and your mother are delusional thinking Ellie ever agreed to, or should have to, pay for your wedding. You're the jerk. She's your younger stepsister you basically had no use for and then seemed to be jealous of. Apparently, she did say she'd help, and offering to buy your dress is helping. That's generous help, I'd say, all things considered. I don't see where she signed on to pay for whatever else you chose to set up. You're not entitled to her wealth. She's earned it, and it's 100% hers. It's nice that she's chosen to share some of it with family at times, but she owes you nothing. Your thinking is absurd. Have the wedding you can afford and be happy with it. Am I the jerk for not sharing my inheritance with the rest of my family? My family situation is messy. I, 25 female, was engaged 4 years ago to my high school sweetheart. My fiance cheated on me with my sister, who's 28. We had never had a good relationship even as kids, so after I found out, I went scorched earth, both of them. She was in love with my fiance, but he dumped her within 2 weeks and was back trying to get me to forgive him. I didn't. My parents were initially on my side, but my sister had a nervous breakdown after she was dumped and was hospitalized, so they changed their tune to, "It's over now and you can't be mad forever." I dumped them too and went on to grad school on the other side of the country. My grandfather was livid with the whole thing, disowned my sister, and chewed out my parents. Sometimes it felt like he was the only one who was on my side and understood. I was able to get my job to let me work remotely and move back home to take care of him when he got sick last fall, and I was heartbroken when he passed a few months ago. I had been in limited contact with my parents since I came back, mostly because I didn't want to be an obstacle to my dad seeing my grandfather, but with the understanding that any discussion of my sister or what happened would end that. It turns out that my grandfather left me virtually everything. He left enough for my father to cover a debt and some token stuff for a couple of other relatives, but he wrote letters for everyone and did a videotape with his attorney explaining what his intentions were. I knew that he had done well for himself, but he lived a pretty simple lifestyle, so I didn't realize how much money and assets he really had. I would give it all up to have my pawpaw back, but even after taxes, it's set for life money. My parents are pretty mad about it. One of the reasons stated for cutting them out was how disappointed my grandfather was with how they had treated me growing up versus my sister and over the fiancé debacle. There were other reasons, but that's what they're fixated on. The will is pretty airtight apparently, so my parents want me to do the right thing and share it equally between me, them, and my sister. Their argument is that I don't need it. I make more than both of them combined, and this would allow them to retire. My sister is not doing great and can't hold a job, so this would ensure she has something for when my parents pass. I don't want to. My grandfather's wishes were crystal clear, and also I kind of don't feel like doing more than the minimum for any of them. They've been telling me that I'm being vindictive because of a mistake years ago. I can't deny that there might be a little vindictiveness there. I don't want them to suffer necessarily, but I also don't feel like they deserve my help. Not the jerk. I'm so sorry your pawpaw is gone. He sounds very loving and interesting by the way you speak about him here. That said, cut contact with them and walk away. That's what he would have wanted, and he granted you the means to do so. Walk tall. You've earned this. Not the jerk. Don't share money with your truly terrible family. They don't deserve it. Take a nice long vacation and cut them off completely. My daughter expects me to pay for her boyfriend's meal. I'm a mother of a 24-year-old daughter, Christine. Christine moved back to our hometown after obtaining her college degree and met her current boyfriend, Simon, who's 30. I'm not a big fan of Simon, but we're civil enough to be around each other. The other day, I called Christine to invite her for lunch, and she agreed to come. Unbeknownst to me, she brought Simon with her. I was slightly bothered, but only since I was looking for an ordinary mother and daughter lunch to catch up with stuff. I welcomed her and Simon, and as far as ordering food, I ordered the usual for Christine, but Simon went over the menu and picked many things, including a drink. Now, this didn't bother me because I figured that he would be paying for this stuff, but apparently this was not the case. The bill came and I told Simon and Christine that I was only paying for myself and Christine. Simon asked why was that, and I told him because I didn't invite him. He let out a loud, "Come on now, what?" And Christine asked if I was serious. I told her yes, because I only invited her, didn't I? She then said I was being rude and unwelcoming to Simon after he took the time to drop what he was doing and come join us, but I frankly told her this wasn't what I planned. She got offended and said they're both one, and I should either pay for both of them or not pay at all. I told her this was not fair to both her and I, but she said no, this was unfair to Simon. I asked if he had money to pay, and he shook his head no. I apologized and still stuck to paying for myself and Christine, but she refused to let me, saying I either pay for both or not pay at all. I asked if that is what she really wanted, and she nodded. I said, okay then, paid for myself and left. Clearly, Christine had no money as well, and they had to wait for a friend to pay for them at the restaurant, and Christine was upset about that. She called me and said that I not only disrespected Simon and made him feel unwelcome, but I also bailed on them by only paying for myself and leaving them stuck in a horrible situation begging for a friend to help. She said she's hurt, Simon's hurt, and they expect an apology and the money their friend paid since it's a debt they need to return now. I told her it was her doing for bringing an uninvited person with her, then insisting that I pay for them both or not pay at all. She argued that I was trying to avoid responsibility and I should make it up to them if I care about our relationship, but I said it won't happen because I don't owe them anything. Things got worse between us. Now I'm thinking I might have caused this by not paying for both of them. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Stick to your guns. He was unwelcome because he wasn't invited. Who doesn't bring their wallet when they weren't even invited? Even if he was a welcome addition, it's very rude to just expect and then demand that someone pay for your food. These two people are too old for these antics, and both sound like moochers who need to grow up. A relationship doesn't mean that if someone is willing to treat one person that they automatically have to foot the bill for both. Edit. Based on OP's comments, this guy is unemployed and sounds like he only showed up for a free meal or in an attempt to ensure that his girlfriend and OP couldn't have a private conversation. The nerve of some people. Even when I'm invited, I always bring my wallet and we always end up fighting to pay the bill. I don't know how people can go around feeling and acting like entitled jerks. Not the jerk, OP. They are. Especially at 30 years old. What 30-year-old adult can't pay for his own lunch? He's 30, not 13. This boggles my mind. And he's also got the nerve to be upset and ask someone else to pay for it. And OP's daughter is 24 and still expects mom to pay for her lunch? What? It wasn't really clear to me by this story, but I got the impression mom asked to take daughter out to lunch. So if that's the case, I would expect someone, especially someone who might still be adjusting to a new job and moving and paying off student loans and so on, might not necessarily have funds to go out to lunch at any given moment. But if her mom told her she was taking her out, it would be entirely reasonable to agree to that, knowing she couldn't afford that normally. Bringing Simon along unannounced and uninvited is where things went sideways. Christine doesn't seem to have a sense of social consideration, and obviously Simon sounds completely worthless. Reconsider working here if I want to take a honeymoon? Okay. I had a manager who hated reading emails and would miss important issues and meetings because of it. I even suggested text-to-speech to make it less unpleasant, but he told me off. He spent a lot of time playing golf with clients and was mostly inaccessible. It got to the point where most of the team CC'd me. I was next on the totem pole, so I could grant approvals for stuff like expense reports and help out on projects my manager was supposed to work on. When I was getting married, I requested 3 weeks off for my honeymoon. Everyone knew I was getting married. Manager even congratulated me on the engagement when it happened. I had 5 weeks vacation accumulated and didn't think it would be a big deal, especially since I was requesting it nearly 8 weeks in advance. Then, a vacation request denied email comes in from our time off system. I emailed manager following up, left voicemails, and after a week, he finally replied to an email. Look, we need dedicated people. If you think you can take 3 weeks off for a vacation, you need to reconsider your position here. Keep in mind, my request stated vacation request for honeymoon. I replied with, no consideration needed. My last day will be in 3 weeks. Let me know about transitioning duties. I forwarded this to HR, CCing manager, and HR sets up my exit interview. But HR tells my manager to set up transition for my responsibilities. During my notice period, I even replied all to this email twice, asking about transition plans, since I didn't get any transition plan. I tell my team, they ask manager what to do with my duties, and manager says he'll think about it, but doesn't do anything nor email anything out. 4 weeks later, I get a call from my old boss. Are you planning on coming in this week? Why would I? Because you work for me. Not as of last week. Stop messing around. Get your butt in the office. I told you my last day when you denied my vacation request. How about giving proper notice and transitions? HR asked you to develop a transition plan and to attend my exit interview. It's not my fault you don't read all your emails. I hang up and block his number, but screenshot the call log and send it to the HR contact with an innocent, should I be worried? Old manager still thinks I work for him. Fallout. Things went from bad to worse for my old manager. Apparently, I was doing most of his managerial duties, so he actually had to try and get stuff done himself. He also got into some legal issues. Those client golf outings, he played golf, but not with clients. That made his termination with cause, so no severance for him. I ended up at a competitor with a nice bump in pay. I wanted to start after my honeymoon, but new company really wanted my help on a pitch. I joined for several weeks, reworking about 1/3 of the pitch, and then went on my honeymoon for 3 weeks. They paid me for the entire time off. That garnered a lot of goodwill from both me and my wife. I only left the company because Mrs. and I moved cross-country and they didn't have remote positions back then. I don't have all the details, but I know old manager had to hire lawyers to deal with legal issues related to his dismissal and the expenses. Clarification: this happened in the late 2000s. Mrs. and I are still married. Am I the jerk for not giving my dad's girlfriend my change? I, 17 male, came to visit my dad for the weekend. His girlfriend, Tessa, doesn't live with him, but is here all the time, and she has a kid. We all went out to dinner yesterday and stopped at Walmart after. I found a movie that I wanted, so I bought it and used cash. Tessa's daughter got some candy and gave her mom the change. I didn't think anything of it and figured her mom kept her money. I bought my movie with money I got from working. It's not like my dad gave it to me or it was allowance or anything. When we were leaving, Tessa asked me if she could have my change. I said, "What? No," and looked at my dad. She said, "Not the singles, just the change, because I need quarters for the laundromat." I said, "No, I saved my change. Sorry." I thought that was the end of it. Then later, my dad talked to me while we were outside. He said that I come off as stingy and should have just given Tessa my change. She has to use the laundromat, and it's not even $1 I'd be giving her. I said, "Well, it's kind of weird for her to be asking a kid that's not even her kid for money." He said, "Again, it's not even $1. She's been having a hard time getting quarters." I said, "I have a whole change jar at mom's. I can go get it." He said, "And give it to her?" I said, "No, I'll count it out and she can buy the change from me. I usually cash it in at the bank anyways." He said, "Never mind. I just thought you could give her the change from earlier. Be the bigger person. You're lucky you have it so good and don't have to pay to do laundry." I do my laundry at home, not his house anyways. Today, Tessa kept making comments about how she's glad she taught her daughter to share and not be entitled. I don't have a problem with giving her the 75 cents, if even that, but I feel like then, every time I'm over and buy something or get change, I'll be expected to hand it over to her. Am I the jerk for not giving my dad's girlfriend my quarters? Not the jerk. It's weird for an adult to be asking a kid for money, and even weirder that she's harping on it so much. If your dad is so concerned about her laundry situation, why doesn't he let her do it at his house? OP. Apparently he offered. She said no because she doesn't want to feel like she's taking advantage. So she just takes advantage of you instead? Cool. Not the jerk. I am very embarrassed for Tessa. I mean, they were all right there in the Walmart parking lot. She could have asked a cashier for change for bills when her daughter was paying for her candy. I feel sorry for OP. This is a really weird dynamic. Raised her kid to share and not be entitled, yet she herself feels entitled enough to get the change from your hard-earned money? She might want to think about that a little more if she can't see the hypocrisy. Not the jerk at all. Dad's girlfriend needs to do some self-reflection. Not the jerk. Your money, your rules. If you feel like giving it to her, good for you, and vice versa. I don't know what your father was talking about when he said, be the bigger person, when in fact, you were standing up for yourself. Your dad's girlfriend shouldn't have to rely on kids to provide for her. She needs to act like an adult. Also very childish and petty of her to make those comments about her kid that were directed towards you. Karen sells me her house. Now she's demanding to buy it back. A couple of years ago, my wife and I bought a house from Pearl, not her real name. Pearl and her husband moved across the country for her husband's job. It's a beautiful house, and they put a lot of work into fixing it up. Everything was going okay for a while. Pearl would message us now and then. My wife grew up in a house next to Pearl's family. She would ask about how things were going, if we enjoyed the house, etc. At one point, she asked if she could see the house the next time she was in town, visiting family or something, and show some friends what it looked like with the renovations. We thought it was odd, but we would have allowed it. She never did end up visiting, so nothing came of it. This was just the beginning of some weird stuff. Almost a year ago, someone accidentally used our address to list their house on Zillow. It was a simple error of using an N instead of an S on the same road. Anyways, I guess Pearl's husband saw the listing and he got excited that we were selling the house. We know this because Pearl messaged us asking us about the house and if we were selling. We told her no, we weren't the ones who had listed it. Pearl continues to send us messages such as, "Oh, that's too bad. My husband got really excited about maybe moving back to that house because we love it so much, and life on this side of the country isn't as good as we thought it would be." Stuff like that. Eventually, she stopped messaging us. Next thing we know, a couple months later, we find out that Pearl and her family have moved back into town but are staying at a rental. She starts messaging us asking what price we would like to sell them the house for. We give them an amount that's a fair price according to the housing market. Pearl says that it's out of their budget and can't justify paying that, mixed with a few comments about how they cut us a deal when they sold it to us. I want to mention that she lied to our faces twice during the sale, claiming that the house had an AC when it didn't, and how they didn't have dogs, even though we could still smell dogs in the carpet that we had to replace, found dog toys in the air vents, and dog hair in the wall paint, so her deal wasn't as good as she likes to make it out to be. She goes radio silent for a while. Cut to 2 weeks ago. Due to some financial hardships, my wife and I are forced to put our house up for sale. We list the house, and of course, Pearl sees the legitimate listing. She makes a few comments about wanting to move into the house again and how the price is higher than what we paid her. We kindly let her know that this is our asking price, and if she's interested, she can make an offer through a realtor. Silence for a while, other than passive-aggressive comments on the community Facebook post about how she misses her old house. Now we have someone interested in buying the house, and he put forward an offer. We're waiting for funding and inspections to come through. Who messages us last night? Pearl. She comments on how we got to enjoy the renovations longer than she did, and other stuff to make us feel sorry for her. She asks if we're under contract, and we tell her we are. She asks with who. We say that it's not anyone we know personally, and we don't feel like disclosing that. She asks how much they offered. We tell her we got a fair offer. She keeps pushing. We let her know that we aren't comfortable letting her know. She's gone silent for now, but I'm sure we'll hear something from her again real soon, maybe once the house is sold. She's just so annoying. I get being attached to a house, but this is becoming borderline harassment. Edit. Thanks for the support, everyone. I have a problem setting boundaries with people, and I worry that I overreact to stuff like this, so it's nice to read about people in my corner. We will be going no contact, and if she tries it again, we will redirect her to our agent. If she keeps it up, we'll look into legal action. Why are you not blocking her number in social media? Quit driving yourself batty and ignore this woman. You owe her nothing. Would I be the jerk if I don't change my son's name, even though it may cause him to lose an inheritance? I, 24, female, got pregnant while I was taking a gap year traveling. I met a guy. I was 19 and he was 23. We had fun. I was working in a bar to make money while I explored his city. When I got pregnant, he lost interest really quickly. I understood, but I still chose to keep it. I went home and had my son. I also made sure to get child support. He could afford it. He did fight it though. I had to prove paternity and everything. Through that, his parents found out. They are well off. They've met my son and they truly do seem to love him. They've provided gifts for his birthday and Christmas. They helped me with extra money so I could complete my university without going into debt. They've taken us on vacation with them so they could spend time with him. They aren't my biggest fans, but we are cordial to each other. 3 months ago, my son's father passed. He was drunk at his bachelor party, tripped on the sidewalk and hit his head, and that was all she wrote. My son and I attended the funeral. We spent a week in that city so his grandparents could see him. They approached me with an offer. They had no other kids or grandkids. Their son was only 28, so he had lots of time to provide them legitimate kids. They did not say this, I'm just assuming, so they never thought about my son's name. They said that if I changed his surname to theirs legally, they would make him their primary heir. I think this is dumb. He's their only grandson, and they would deny him an inheritance because of his last name? I said I would consider it to be polite, and I've left it at that. I actually have a pretty good life as it is. My family has been very supportive, and because of the whole court thing, my son's father had to have life insurance with him as the beneficiary. Would it be nice for my kid to get a big sum of money? Yes. Do I want him to have the surname of a man who didn't want him to see him or love him? No. I've been talking to my family about it, and a few of them think I'm being a jerk for giving up this kind of money for my son. It's generational wealth, and I'm making the decision based on emotion. I think they're jerks for thinking money is the only thing that matters. I think I'll tell my son's grandparents that they can talk to him about it when he turns 16. He will be old enough to understand the implications, but young enough to not be tied professionally to his last name. I get where you're coming from in this sense that you aren't fond of him having a name that is tied to his dad who didn't want anything to do with him. However, I just want to give you some things to think about. His paternal grandparents did want a relationship with him and have helped out, so the last name is also tied to them who do want him in their life. You're looking at this as they will totally deny him an inheritance because of his last name, but they didn't say they would exclude him altogether. They said he would be the primary heir. Maybe that means without the last name that all property will be sold and all money will be split with other family members, charities, etc. But if he has their last name, that all properties and most money will go to him with little splitting of the money to anyone else. You think that you can wait until he's 16, but that's 11 years away. What if something happens to them before then? How do you think your son will feel if he doesn't get this and finds out he could have had generational wealth and never would have had to worry about money and all you had to do was simply change his last name? I mean, personally, if someone had told my mom that I could get generational wealth as long as she changed my last name and my mom didn't and I found out, I'd be mad that my mom didn't rename me. I accidentally bought a bat-infested mansion. My wife and I live in Washington State. We are young parents, born last November, and we're very desperate to buy a home and get set up to raise our kid. The place we were living in had a half acre but was a trailer, so it was small and full of problems. Most of the houses in our area are above $800,000 for a postage stamp lot where you can lean out your window and touch your neighbor's house, so we looked outside our area. I have a fully remote job, so we picked a spot close to our favorite state park. The home we bought for $870,000, 20% down. It's a huge Victorian mansion on top of a hill with a big turret and a view of the water. The inspection showed a lot of projects, but nothing we couldn't handle over the course of a decade or more. Once my wife returns to work, it would be possible to burn down the equity and finance improvements. One thing in my report was evidence of rodents in the attic. We've dealt with rats and mice before by setting traps and thought very little of the problem. My mom talked about having squirrels in her attic that they had to shut out. Not a big deal. So, despite some hesitation about the repairs and fixes that might lie ahead, we bought the place. We closed on April 1st and moved in by mid-month. It was amazing. The location is incredible. We have guests in May, no problems. Then, towards the end of the month, we get a bat in our room at night. I quickly catch it in a bucket and I get it out through the window while wife and baby get out. I learn later that I should have kept it. We think we're close to the woods. This is just what happens sometimes if a window is open a crack. Then we have a guest staying in the bedroom in the furnished attic. They hear scrawling in the walls. We start hearing it while we're up there, where we put the TV and a futon. It's a carpeted living room type space up there. So we stake out the house and we see a horde of bats fly out from a tiny gap in the corner of our attic window dormer. We immediately call as many pest companies as we can and reach out to our insurance agent. I have work travel and come back. We have friends come to visit. We all get incredibly sick. Probably not associated to the bats, but histoplasmosis isn't impossible. At first, we are very concerned about the bats, but we think this might be addressable. Then it starts getting even crazier. Early July, after a week of being super ill, the first bat company comes. They review the house, tell us it's one of the worst infestations they've ever seen. There are likely thousands of bats, which means chances are high that a few of them do carry rabies. Also, that much fecal matter will definitely become a human health hazard even if it's above the drywall, because it will fester, mold, get wet, and drip through. The next day, another bat gets into the kitchen in the middle of the day while we're cooking. I catch it with my fishing net and squash it. The bat pest person told us to take it to the health department, so I did, but it ended up being too far gone to tell if it had rabies. Live bats are required. My wife is too concerned to keep staying there. She packs up baby and goes to live at my sister's. Our original house we had intended to either rent or sell to a developer, but everything happens in slow motion with a baby under one. Now we had to relocate back into it. I stay up in the house to deal with contractors in the health department. I'm still extremely sick, cough, and sore throat. My wife and baby start their rabies exposure series per the health department. We're set to max out our insurance coverage costs. Even with coverage, we will end up paying $14,000 in medical expenses. So we start talking with the neighbors. Some of them even stake out the house with me while I take video of thousands of bats flying out. The health department comes to try and capture a live one. They can't get to one though. None are loose inside the house. They're all stuck behind drywall and plyboard panels and enmeshed into the insulation. I open up all the crawl space doors and seal the attic shut. Then I come out and there are 6 in the attic. I catch one and bring it to the health department. Now here we are, evacuated, living on 1/4 of our personal goods. Back to our trailer. During this time, we've been coordinating with lawyers, insurance, pest control, various contractors. I say this all in the context of not wanting to live in that home anymore. We love the neighborhood, but feel that this place is going to be a complete and absolute money pit. With enough love, attention, and improvement, and changes to the Fed's rates, we could probably sell it for $1.1 million or higher if it was proven bat-free, repainted, and some other aesthetic work was done. But it would take $150,000 to $200,000 to get there, so it would virtually be a wash. With the market teetering in a million stupid directions and the scale of severity of this problem, we are losing our minds. At least we have good Halloween costumes picked out this year. Update. We're just chugging along, still trying to piece together any semblance of a plan while struggling to keep our sanity. It's a lot of small steps, one at a time, and a lot of stress, and 12 ER visits to get all of our rabies shots. The expertise of some of you Redditors was astounding. Not a ton of help on figuring out our method to finance this, and I'll also point out $450,000 on our old place is a stretch. We'd be lucky to get above $360,000 without a lot of work. There's also a lot of family resistance to selling, as my mother owned it and lived in it after her divorce, and it's her fallback plan if her current spouse dies. Long story there too. Luckily, the Department of Fish and Wildlife does have some ways they can help. Not financially. They can help us get permitting and design for bat houses that can be put up in the state park. Our other neighbors are supportive of this too, because it would take bat pressure away from their houses too. The toughest thing we're dealing with though is anger and depression. Luckily, we also have an amazing little dude, our baby, who keeps us smiling no matter how bleak things get. I'm also finding it hard to be 100% committed to work and struggling to keep ahead of the opinions and office politics that my position has to contend with for success. My boss is very understanding, but I can tell this has definitely set me back a bit in a few ways. We are also pursuing a few other creative ventures to raise funds, but I don't want to break subreddit rules, so I'm leaving them off this update. If anyone is a good book editor or interior designer with art skills, please reach out. The world is indeed comic, but the joke is on mankind. I feel like I'm falling into a Lovecraftian madness. My dad is setting ridiculous rules for me if I want to move back in with him. I'm 22, male, and my dad remarried about 5 years ago. I lived with him until shortly beforehand, and then I moved in with my mom. My dad's wife has a son that's 38, and he needed a place to stay last year, and he declined because he didn't want someone that old living with them. I've had an apartment the last 3 years with roommates. I was going to the local college, but stopped about December of 2021, so I've been working a couple of jobs. I have a car and 2 roommates. We shared a 2-bedroom apartment. They both decided to move out with their girlfriends, so I need a place to stay. Plus, I can't afford an apartment plus tuition. Well, I want to get back in school and save up money for a new place. I asked my dad if I can move in with them. He got back to me last week and said I can move in on Labor Day weekend. He provided me the following rules. I can't have girls in the house, pull up in the driveway or cul-de-sac. No guy friends in the house after 8 p.m. or before 10 a.m. unless driving me to work or class. I can't drink or smoke. He can test me for this anytime he chooses. I have to cut the grass, shovel the snow, and complete a weekly grocery store run for his wife. I must attend class every day that I'm scheduled. I have to keep my own car, and I can't borrow his or his wife's. I have a midnight curfew. Exception is if I get off work after 11 p.m., then I have 2 hours to get home. Missing curfew means I can't come home for the evening. Being gone 3 straight days means I have to move out. I have to attend church with him twice a month. If his wife asks me to do something, I need to do it. If she asks me to do something and it makes me uncomfortable, call him and he will handle it. In return, he said he will do the following. Pay for 2 courses this semester. If I get a B or better, he will pay for 2 more courses next semester. He will provide me an employee referral at his job so I can get a better position for a second job. The security guards make $22 an hour, but it's overnight shift. It's not guaranteed placement, but several people's kids work overnights as security guards on cleaning crews. 6 months of rent-free living. If I move out January 1st, 2024, he'll give me $5,000 towards a new place. I think my dad should either help or just say no. These rules are absurd. I'm an adult. I have 2 jobs and pay for my own car and insurance. He said I can have guy friends over, but not women. I have a couple of good friends that are women, and it's weird inviting over some of my guy buddies, but not them. His requests are completely controlling. I think he made these rules so I would say no. And if I said yes, if I break the rules, he can kick me out anyways. So, should I request that I'm able to move in until I find a new place in a few months and these rules are absurd? Yes, some of these rules are a bit daft, but 1. The chores that have been said are fair in lieu of paying rent and a fair contribution to running the household. They're about the sort of life your dad and his wife want to lead. They don't want your friends coming over at all hours and all that. They don't want to meet your girlfriend over breakfast. Moving back home at 22 is more like being in a house sharing arrangement than reverting to being a kid in the family home. They're being very clear with you about how they expect that to work, not unlike a lot of shared households. You're not moving back as a kid, nor staying as a guest. Whether you want to live like that with your parents will depend on how much you can't afford to rent somewhere else instead. You can try telling him that he either gives you a place to stay or he doesn't, but you don't get to kick off if he says, "No worries, we'll keep the guest room then." You're the jerk. Coworker took glucose tabs out of my locker because they taste like candy. About 12 years ago, I worked in security for a high-end resort. It was a small group, and the head of security was a retired police sergeant. He was actually pretty cool and had a really strong sense of right and wrong. We had a fridge in the back, and I would buy things like juice for when I had low sugar. I'm a type 1 diabetic. And snacks to keep my sugar from bottoming out since I walked 5 to 6 miles per shift. My juice disappeared. I replaced it with the same thing and it happened again. I got another one and wrote on it that I don't use cups. It disappeared again. We all had an idea who it was, but couldn't ever catch him. Until I walked in one day and saw the first shift guy making a meal out of my food. I asked him point blank what he was doing eating my food, and he said, "That's what you get for being late." I checked the clock and I was 2 minutes late. He even took food out of my locker and was snacking on my glucose tabs because they taste like candy. Somehow, the head of the department found out what he said and called me in to ask me about it. Seems this dude had been stealing food from the fridge since he started there, and while people weren't happy about it, they were willing to let it go since a lot of people brought food in and thought of it as a community property. This didn't apply to me because they viewed my food as medically necessary, and this was the first time that he went into someone's locker. My boss said this would be handled and dismissed me. When I came in for my next shift, all of this guy's stuff was gone and his locker was empty. My mom also worked there at the time, and I found out that because this guy had served in Iraq, he felt like everyone owed him. He would constantly come in late to work, pawn his work off on other people, and was the only one who didn't contribute to the communal fridge. If you needed to type up an incident report, you had to wait for him to finish browsing the internet on the office computer. We only had one at the time. I ran into him about 6 months after he was let go while I was doing laundry, and right as I was approaching the big machine, I was doing mine and then my boyfriend's laundry, he jumped in front of me and took it. This guy might be the most entitled jerk I've ever encountered. Edit. I told my mom about this post, and there was more that happened before I started. I normally wouldn't have added anything because it was already more than enough, but this was crazy. I guess he used to try to bring his enormous husky into the office with him, but the boss said he couldn't do that. Okay, the dog isn't in the office anymore. But less than a few hours later, the office received a report about a dog that was out in the car. He left him out there. What? I have 2 dogs. One we rescued just last December and he's 12. I wouldn't ever do something like that. When boss man pretty much asked him what the heck and said he can't do that, it's cruel. The guy said he wanted his dog near him but was told he couldn't bring him to work. Again, what the heck? Manager says I cannot clock out unless I get cleared by a manager. So to get started, some context. I work as a technician that does jobs in residential homes. We get several jobs on our routes at the beginning of the day. After we're done with our jobs, we send a message to our manager and the route service rep. If I'm done early and another tech is running behind, they will send that job to me. If there are no jobs left to be covered, we're cleared and we can head home. We also work 4 10-hour shift days, with the option to pick up a 5th day for overtime and choose between a half or a full day. Now on to the story. I like picking up 5th days for a little extra overtime. On one of the days I picked up, I had a family dinner I didn't want to miss, so I made it a half day. It was a busy day, and I didn't get to my last job until around 2:30. Lucky for me, the customer wasn't home and the job was rescheduled. I messaged my manager and route service rep that I was done. I was cleared by the service rep, but not the manager. I didn't think much about it since I was meant to be off 2 hours earlier, and they never add more jobs to you after your scheduled shift. So I just headed back to the office and clocked out and made it to my family dinner. The next day I worked, I opened my work phone to find a message from my manager an hour after I clocked out that day stating, "You are not allowed to clock out unless cleared by a manager." At first I was like, uh-oh, I must have forgotten to add him to the message. I checked, and no, I definitely added him, and it shows he saw my message. So I took a screenshot of both messages and thought to myself, alright, I'll maliciously comply. If I don't get cleared, I won't clock out. So every day since then, I made sure I was cleared by a manager. Honestly, most of the time, all managers are really good at being on top of this, so I didn't think I would ever get to take advantage of this malicious compliance. But about a month later, I finally got my chance. On this fateful day, it was a busy one, and it was winter and we were getting some bad snow. I had several big jobs and was behind schedule. Finally, after finishing my last job at almost 8 p.m., I messaged my manager, the same one that gave me that rule, and the route service rep that I was done. I started heading back, wanting to get out of the snow and get home. I got home at about 8:30 and I still wasn't cleared by my manager, so I didn't clock out. I messaged him again, asked him if he can clear me so I can clock out. No answer. I said and debated how much I can milk this. After all, I do get paid hourly. Well, I didn't want to take it too far, so I ended up calling him just before 9. He picked up confused. I told him I've been waiting for him to clear me. Still confused, he responded, "Yeah, of course I cleared." I remind him that he instructed me to not clock out until after I was cleared by a manager. Then I thanked him, hung up, and noted in the message that I called the manager and was cleared. It's been several months since then, and to this day, that manager still sticks to everything he says. And to this day, I still milk an extra 15 to 30 minutes of pay every time a manager forgets to clear me before I remind them. Wife's ex-affair partner sent her flowers at work, and she decided to keep them. I, 38 male, am upset that my wife, 38 female, kept flowers sent to her work from the guy she had an affair with. The affair ended 6 months ago, and I felt that we were finally getting to a place where I don't actively distrust her. She's a teacher, and they were delivered yesterday, her first day with students for the semester. She called me between classes to thank me for sending her black roses and wanted to know what they symbolized to me. She was excited, genuinely excited, and I was confused. When I explained that I didn't send them, she got really quiet and her tone and mood dramatically dropped. I asked if he sent them, and she said she didn't know, there's no note, but if it wasn't me, she didn't know who else would send them. I told her if they're from him to not accept them, to which she responded she already accepted the delivery and doesn't know who they're from. Cue the start of her next class, and we don't talk about it again for the day. I did not specifically tell her to throw them away or anything like that, but I felt like my "you can't accept those if they're from him" set my expectation clearly. I had already planned a mini celebration for that afternoon when she got home. I had already bought her flowers for the house, cooked her favorite dinner, and bought her something she wanted for her classroom. We had a great afternoon, and the flowers at her work didn't show up. Today, she sends me a picture of her class, related to a text conversation we were having, and almost off frame, I can see the flowers on her desk. I ask if that's what I'm seeing. She confirms. I ask if he sent them. She said he had sent her a text message later that day confirming that they were from him. At this point, I'm like, what? Why would you keep them? She basically says they're just flowers. She doesn't care about them at all, and you know how much I like flowers, and I've never gotten flowers at work before, so I just decided to pretend they're from you. Then, when I push back, she tells me I never made it clear I expected her to throw them away, but she says she will, and shortly thereafter sends me a picture of them and bent up and stuffed into her small trash can. I'm very upset about this, but not sure if I'm blowing this out of proportion in my own mind. I'm fairly confident she's not been talking to him and that she has not been around him. She's had her location on her phone on since I decided to give this another chance. I don't check her phone, I don't have the passcode, and I told her I didn't want it when she offered. That if I wanted to go through her phone, I'd do it in front of her. I'm wishing I could silently check her phone right now. This will start a fight if I demand to check it when she gets home. Edit. She came home after work rather upset. Usually I'm the calm one, but honestly, I was just seeing red. We had a heated discussion where I rehashed my position, and she told me my feelings about it were nonsense. They were just stupid flowers, as she rolled her eyes. Then I told her this wasn't working for me. I actually meant the way she was treating me on how I felt about the flowers, but she took it to mean our reconciliation and stormed out of the house with a few of her things. In a later phone call, I offloaded a lot of crap. Most of it she deserved, but some of it she really didn't. I got a text from one of her teacher friends that she was at her house. She called me this morning while driving to work, and I really wanted her to apologize. She ended up telling me her cheating wasn't just her fault and that I had some part in it too. While I'm fine admitting I'm not perfect and there are areas I can improve, I sure as heck am not responsible for your cheating. I don't yell, like ever, but I yelled at her this morning. Then I blocked her for most of the day. I'm done with her. I actually hired a lawyer during the affair, and we've signed an MSA. I had asked the lawyer not to send the final decree for signature after she asked for a second chance. I called him at lunch and told him to send it. He wasn't surprised to hear from me, unfortunately. Honestly, the fact that she kept his phone number and didn't block him is a huge red flag. That would be a must for me. He's showing he still has interest, and she's not doing anything to let him know she's not interested. Hopefully, you're already in therapy. If not, it's necessary for both of you if you plan to stay with her. How should I, male 45, deal with my wife, who's 47, who would prefer working for minimum wage instead of using her law degree? Important background. My wife has chronic fatigue syndrome. She worked full-time for a few years after we got married. She's an attorney and was earning $75,000 a year. In 2010, however, her illness became too much to manage while also holding down a job, and for the next 9 years, I was the sole breadwinner for our family. We've paid roughly $500 each year for her to maintain her law license even though she's not been using it. This has been an incredible strain, particularly once we added a couple of kids. But during that time, I never pushed her to go back to work because I understood that it might just be too much for her to deal with. But 4 years ago, a mutual friend of ours asked my wife to occasionally spend a few hours per week helping out in a clerical role for minimum wage, and she agreed. This gradually turned into my wife working 15 to 20 hours a week and occasionally working as much as 35 hours a week. She would come home utterly exhausted and would sleep through most of the following weekends. After a few months of this, I pointed out to her that if she can physically manage regularly working in an office for that amount of time, perhaps she should consider doing much more lucrative legal work instead. I noted that she could work from home, no need to get dressed up or deal with a commute, and that if she billed just 5 hours per week, 1 hour per weekday, she could roughly double our household income. Even so, I only offered this as a consideration. I did not insist. Several opportunities have presented themselves over the past few years for her to resume work as a lawyer. Although she sometimes expressed minimal interest, she did not actually pursue any of them. When our friend asks, she continues to do the clerical work at minimum wage. Last December, after a year of particularly acute financial stress, I finally put my foot down. I told my wife that the family needed her to start earning more. A small wills and trust practice would be a low-pressure approach that would give her all of the scheduling flexibility she could possibly need. I reiterated that I was only asking her to do work from home for 5 hours each week, and I offered to help her get started. I also started setting deadlines by which I would ask for her to report progress towards the goal of starting a new law practice. Over the first 6 months of this year, I know she has, grudgingly, made some effort to move in this direction, but still does not seem inclined to actually start doing the legal work. I just about reached my wit's end. I love my wife, and divorce is absolutely not an option, but I'm starting to really resent her unwillingness to take the steps necessary to help carry the family's financial burden. I've used every gentle approach I can think of to tell her how important this is to me, but to little avail. A couple of weeks ago, I was literally about 10 minutes away from demanding that she find a marriage counselor for us to talk to. I was rehearsing in my head the exact way I wanted to approach it, but I ended up pulling back at the last minute because I don't think she would take that well. And I also felt like that was one of those bridges that, once crossed, can never be uncrossed. So Reddit, I'm asking for advice. Should I tell her that we need to see a marriage counselor? Should I take some other approach? Edit. To provide additional context, I'm a public interest attorney focusing on civil rights and civil liberties with a nonprofit that my wife and I founded together. Although I am able to take on amazing cases, our organization is much more nonprofit than most. We bring in an average of $45,000 to $55,000 per year, and we have 2 sets of student loans to pay off. For the past decade, we've lived in her parents' basement in a rural county, and the amount I am able to bring in by myself is just barely enough to keep us afloat, with zero money being set aside for retirement. The 20 hours of work per month, not per week, I'm asking her to do, which I would be willing to help with, would bring in an additional $15,000 to $30,000 per year. Edit. Someone could drop $1 million on our family tomorrow, and we would not choose to live anywhere else. My in-laws are amazing people, which is how they produce the amazing woman that I love. I feel that many commenters do not appreciate the fact that 2 people can love each other very much and be mostly very happy, but still have one particular, significant issue that creates tension or frustration. You don't divorce someone you love and are very happy living with over one frustration, even if that frustration becomes quite significant. You look for ways to fix the problem, which is why I wrote this post in the first place. And for people who question having kids, even though they're expensive, I suggest a little perspective. For the entirety of human history up until just a few decades ago, pretty much everyone alive was much, much poorer than my family is right now. I believe that kids, especially ours, are a blessing and a gift. No amount of material wealth or comfort could be worth not having them. My wife expects me, a pro athlete, to wake up in the middle of the night to help with the baby. My wife, Katie, 25 female, and I, 28 male, had our first baby together about 3 months ago. I'm an athlete, and Katie is a stay-at-home mom. Sleep is very important for me because of my sport. I can't be waking up multiple times throughout the night and be sleep deprived. Katie and I talked about this before trying for a kid, and I told her that I can't compromise my sleep for anything short of an emergency. I specifically mentioned that I wouldn't be waking up during the night to help with the baby, but we could hire a night nurse to help out. Things had been going smoothly until a few days ago, when Katie was being cold and distant. I asked if something was wrong, and she said everything was fine. She was quiet for a while, then finally mentioned that it's extremely unfair that I'm not helping her at all with the baby during the night. I acknowledged that she has been working hard and not getting much sleep, but we also previously agreed to this arrangement. Katie has refused to hire a night nurse to help because she doesn't trust someone new to watch our baby alone during the night. I suggested that she could have a family member help, but she didn't want to burden them. So we've been at an impasse. She still doesn't want to hire help, and I'm still not waking up during the night. Additional info. We have a maid that cleans and does the laundry multiple times per week, and we also have a meal delivery service that makes the majority of our food, so I'm not just dumping tons of housework on her. Katie doesn't have a problem with the maid being around the baby because she's known her for a while now. We've also been going to regular doctor and therapist appointments. They don't think she's suffering from postpartum. Hiring a night nurse would not be a financial burden, so the cost isn't the issue. I spend as much time as I can caring for and bonding with our baby, just not during the night when I'm sleeping. Edit for clarity. I'm a professional athlete, and my sport is our primary source of income. Update. Some of you mentioned the idea of doing a test run period with a night nurse helping out during the day while other people are awake and around, which I think is a good idea. I talked to Katie about hiring a night nurse to temporarily help out during the day, and she agreed and seemed happy about the idea. That way she can get familiar with the new nurse and feel more comfortable about transitioning to a full night type of arrangement. She also apologized for lashing out at me and explained that she was mostly too embarrassed to ask her family for more help when she already has hired help as a stay-at-home mom. So we agreed to ask my sister since they have a really good relationship. My sister has offered to come by 1 or 2 nights per week to watch our son until Katie's comfortable having the night nurse be full-time and alone. That way, Katie immediately gets at least some uninterrupted sleep too for now. As some of you figured out, I play baseball. Season officially starts in late March with spring training late February, so I won't be home much because of travel schedule. So that at least gives us a couple of months to get comfortable with a night nurse and a nanny so she isn't too overwhelmed. Not the jerk. I thought this would be the normal story of the wife doing all of the baby stuff, cooking, cleaning, etc. But you have a maid and food service, so she mostly just does the baby stuff. And seeing as how this is the only thing you've told her and made clear before even having a baby, plus giving her multiple solutions, you're definitely not the jerk. Not the jerk. You clearly set boundaries and offered alternatives, but maybe you can give a little. Is there a night of the week that you can let the wife sleep? Maybe have whoever the night nanny would be over for some day nanny stuff to build trust. You shouldn't compromise your profession, especially athletic ones that have health and injury risks that would also compromise your future earnings. But maybe this is a sign your wife just needs more help than she thought, and you gotta adapt somehow. No jerks here. I absolutely sympathize with your wife. I do. It's so hard in the beginning. Give her some grace. Sleep deprivation is no joke and can totally change a person. Is there maybe even 1 night a week you can help? An off season where you can help a bit? I hope if things don't improve with the baby's sleep, she will hire a night nurse so she isn't so resentful, as unfortunately, it sounds like that's where things are going. Best of luck to you all. Am I the jerk for yelling at my boyfriend's dad to let me out of the Tesla if he was going to let it drive itself? I spent last night with my boyfriend's family. We had gone out to dinner and his dad was going to drive. So my boyfriend, me, his parents, and his brother all squeezed into his dad's car and we went to the restaurant. I had a few drinks and his dad had too since he was going to drive. But on the way back, his dad started asking me, "You work on self-driving cars, yeah?" I do. I'm a systems engineer. He started asking me how I liked his Tesla, and I joked, "Just fine, as long as you're the one driving it." And he asked me what I thought about full self-driving, which he had just bought. He asked me if he should turn it on. I said, "Not with me in the car." And he then laughed and asked how I was still so scared when I work with this stuff every day. I was like, it's because but stopped when he pulled over and literally started turning it on. I was like, "I'm not kidding. Let me out of the car if you're going to do this." And my boyfriend's dad and brother started laughing at me, and my boyfriend still wasn't saying anything. His dad was like, "It'll be fine." And I reached over my boyfriend's brother and I tried to open the door, which was locked. I was getting mad, and probably more so because I was tipsy, and I yelled at him, "Let me out!" My boyfriend started trying to tell me to calm down because I was drunk, and I told him that it didn't matter. I'd be out of here if I was sober or drunk. He told me to stop talking like this in front of his little brother, and I told him to tell his dad to cut his crap out, and I wouldn't be acting this way. His dad was like, "Fine, I didn't realize it'd be such a big deal," and drove home normally, but things have been tense since. We got back to his house, and he was mad at me for overreacting the first time I met his family all together. I got angry and was like, "I'm not the one who decided to do the one thing that I said I'm not comfortable with in the car, just after I asked him not to laugh at me." He said that his dad used the car a lot and it was fine. And I asked him, since we're both rock climbers, would he ever get on a route with his equipment that doesn't work? What if someone says they do it all the time and it's fine? He was like, "Absolutely not, but that's different." And I was like, "It's literally not. Just like we don't know any climbers who would do that, nobody in my field that I know would stay in that car." He got mad and told me to go to sleep. I was drunk. But honestly, today I woke up sober and I stand by what I did. Like, I wasn't comfortable with what was happening, and my boyfriend's family all laughed and started trying to do the one thing I said no to. Like, whatever that thing is, it's messed up. Am I the jerk for yelling at my boyfriend's dad to let me out of the car? Not the jerk. When someone tells me to let them out of my car, I don't hesitate. If it makes you that uncomfortable, then he should have just waited until you weren't in the car. Honestly, I don't have anything to do with anybody who thinks it's funny to scare me. Making people uncomfortable doesn't take a lot of skill. Not the jerk. Not the jerk at all. Honestly, it doesn't matter the situation. Someone asked you about a thing you have verifiable professional experience with. You expressed immediate discomfort and let them know it was something you didn't like and were not comfortable with. He completely disregarded your clear statement of being uncomfortable and then immediately engaged in the activity that you said you were uncomfortable with. I absolutely can't stand people that do the, "See, it's not that bad, you're fine." It's like they have to convince you that it's okay so that they can feel okay about it. I would be livid. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend's dad? Please let us know. Call me old-fashioned, but I would never want to be in one of those self-driving cars either. I don't care how safe people say they are. Don't want my help? Okay, sure. You just go ahead and get yourself fired. A bit of background. A while back, I was still in high school. I worked at the local cinema to earn a bit of pocket money and experience. I stayed for a couple of years, working weekends when school was in session. I think it was halfway into my second year when the target of this revenge came into the picture. We'll call him Luke. Luke was a new hire and he was just learning the ropes. This was common as turnover was high since we were all students. He seemed alright at first and everyone was nice to him since we were all pretty close and knew one another from high school and we welcomed him in. I don't think even a week had passed before the problem started. The first issue I heard of was that Luke was trying to flirt with one of the girls. Thing was, this girl was already in a relationship with one of the other employees, and everyone knew this, including Luke. That didn't stop him though, and eventually the girl told him to his face to cut it out. It only got worse from there. Now, I do my best to see the good in people and give them the benefit of the doubt. Despite what the others were saying, I still try to get along with him. This unfortunately changed during the first real conversation I had with him. We were on break at the same time, and about 5 of us crowded into the little break room for lunch. I forget what exactly we were talking about, but I remember it was an uncomfortable topic, and Luke was using a lot of language. The break room was not soundproof, and there were patrons outside, especially kids. I tried to warn him about talking like that so loudly, and that he might get in trouble if a customer heard him. Immediately, his attitude towards me changed, and he responded with something along the lines of, "I can say what I want. I have the right to free speech. Don't tell me what to do." What? Sheesh. Okay, chill. I was just concerned, but you do you. A few minutes later, the conversation had switched to high school, and Luke was raving about how Caucasians were the majority in all the high schools in our district. Now, for my high school, this isn't true, as most of the community and students attending were Latino and made up about 70% of our student body. I told him as much. Me. That's not the case for our high school. Luke. Yeah it is. We're the majority everywhere. I have a friend that goes there. Me. I actually go there. It's mostly Luke. Why are you talking? Me. Excuse me? Luke. Who invited you into this conversation? I wasn't talking to you. Who asked? Now, this irritated me. I know it's a joke about looking for who asked, but this was before that became a thing, and I found it extremely rude. But in a moment of clarity, the best comeback came to mind, like arguing in the shower by yourself, and to this day, I could only wish to be able to recreate the moment. Smiling, I threw his words right back at him in his face. Free speech. The others at the table were laughing as I threw away the rest of my lunch and left the break room. My heart was beating too fast from the weird adrenaline rush I got, and I spent the rest of my break in the back of concessions until it was time to clock back in. I think the conversation was what sparked Luke's hatred of me. Ever since then, he would glare at me whenever I walked by, would dump the trash from his bin when we were sweeping the floors for me to pick up, and generally was a jerk. His behavior kept getting worse. He would threaten to fight people. He was a short potato of a boy, so no one was really scared. Argue, say rude, passive-aggressive, or downright hateful things, and was just generally a jerk. At some point, during a shift I wasn't there, he cornered the girl he had been eyeing and kept verbally harassing her to the point that she hid in the manager's office where he couldn't get to her. She was a sweet and loyal girl and a friend, and she and her boyfriend could be described with the phrase puppy love and had been together for a long time. The boyfriend was angry when she texted the group chat about what had happened and wanted to get Luke fired. However, people were hesitant about this, saying that the managers wouldn't want to because he had claimed discrimination and that he hadn't done anything blatantly wrong. Then another one of the employees made a suggestion. Luke was incompetent. We all knew this. Why not make the manager see it too? Revenge time. It wasn't hard to do since Luke would tend to do himself in the foot. When possible, we'd point out to managers when reviewing the cameras in the halls about him dumping his trash can when sweeping onto the ground in front of patrons. When he was using his language during the break, a text would be sent and someone would lead a manager to him to be caught. He rarely cleaned up, was rude and loud, and the incident with the girl didn't help his case. It still wasn't enough, and week after week, his name was on the schedule. Then my opportunity came. See, at the cinema, there's a position called point, aka the ticket taker that lets you into the theater area. It's the second most dreaded position, the first being self-serve cleanup, as you have to stand in place and interact with customers at a rapid-fire pace, smiling and listening for theaters to be called at the same time. When the night ends, the last person on point has to close and clean the self-serve stations. Today, to my initial dread, Luke and I were both on point. The entire time, Luke would leave his station and pace the lobby. Toward me, then back, not even sweeping the ground as he went. He wasn't supposed to leave point and had to walk around customers to get back to his podium to help them. He was told off by a manager once or twice for this, but he continued his antics anyway. Then, as things slowed down, one of the managers approached me and told me we were going down to 1 point, one person at the center rather than at both entrances, and that I'd have to explain to Luke how to close point before I went back to help clean concessions. It had to be this way since I had already taken a sanitation test and Luke had yet to do so and therefore wasn't allowed behind concessions. When I finished closing my point, I walked over to Luke and told him to move his podium to the center so he could take closing point. He did, though scowling at me. When he was set, I began to explain. Me. So you'll be closing point tonight after the last movie starts. You'll need to go to the… Luke. Go away. Me. What? Luke. I don't need your help, so don't talk to me. But I need to teach you how to close point. I don't care. Shut up. I know you don't like me, but this is work. You need to… No, I don't want your help. Just shut up. But… Buzz off. Don't talk to me. At this point, I was beyond upset. I was furious. I was trying to help, even after how he had acted, how he treated everyone here. I didn't care what he said in the break room, but it shouldn't affect work. This was ridiculous. I must have snapped or something because I complied, walking away, saying, Fine, I don't care. Don't ever talk to me again. Luke. Hey, I said… Me, waving a hand over my shoulder. Don't talk to me ever again. I went behind concessions to help where he couldn't reach me. I don't know when, but I started crying out of frustration and one of my friends came and hugged me, bringing me to a corner to cool down. I don't get angry often, and when I do, it makes me scared. I was just sick of his antics, sick of the way he spoke to me, just sick of his attitude. I'm not sure how long I sat back there, but soon enough, that same friend came and waved me to the front of concessions. I wiped my face and walked out, and he pointed to point. There was Luke, being instructed by the manager on how to close point, and the manager did not look happy with him. Arms folded, frowning, flat tone, everything spoke of irritation. My friend said they had already explained that Luke refused my help when the manager asked them what was going on, as point can be seen and heard from almost the entire lobby. Seeing the scene lifted my spirits a bit, and I was able to end the night relatively easy. The next weekend, when the schedule came out, I didn't even have to check my email. It was posted in the group text, specifically the section with Luke's name. It was blacked out. If he had quit, his name would have been removed, but the fact it was blacked out meant it was a sudden event. Luke had been fired. I'm not sure what it was that they fired him for anymore, but considering we were always low on staff and they had to worry about discrimination, I'm guessing there were enough complaints that they had to fire him. I'd like to think that last interaction I had with him was the final nail in the coffin, but I was just glad to see him go more than anything. I heard he worked at a common fast food place for a while, but ended up getting McFired from there too. Good luck in life, Luke. You weren't missed. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.